This man woke up, chose violence, and never looked back. Dropped demons, villains, and dimensions while screaming jackpot and looking fine as hell. Women fighting for him, world shaking because of him. Turned into a walking apocalypse, roasted every villain. Absolute fucking cinema. Who's watching this hybrid demon?
Welcome, legends, to Chronos Recom. I wrote this story myself, so if you have any suggestions or what-ifs you want to see, drop it in the comments below. Also, just wanted to let you know I've got a Patreon set up now for anyone who wants to support the channel directly. You can get early access to stories, submit direct fan requests, and get exclusive content. It's totally optional, but if you want to help keep these stories coming, check it out. Links in the description. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that bell so you never miss an upload. Let's dive into this story.
The steel spike punched clean through his chest. It came from the villain's arm, a quirk that turned bone into industrial metal. The spike entered through Izuku Midoriya's sternum and exited through his back, like pinning the 10-year-old boy to the living room wall of their small apartment. Blood splattered across the All Might poster behind him. His mother screamed so loud the neighbors 3 floors up probably heard it. The villain laughed. A thick, scarred man with metal bones jutting from his forearms like railway spikes. He'd come for money, kicked in the door, found a woman and her kid. Easy targets. "Stupid brat," the villain said, grinning with yellowed teeth. "Should have stayed in your room." Izuku Midoriya collapsed to her knees, hands over her mouth, tears flooding her face. Her boy, her baby, impaled through the chest like a butterfly on a pin. His green eyes were wide, his mouth hung open, then those green eyes looked down. Izuku stared at the spike sticking out of his chest. Blood ran down his shirt, his favorite shirt, the red one with the smiley face on it, the one his mom had just washed yesterday. His expression shifted. Not pain, not fear, annoyance. "Man, I just washed this shirt." The villain blinked. Izuku's eyes snapped up. The green in his irises bled away, replaced by a burning, furious red. The air in the apartment changed. The temperature dropped 10 degrees in a heartbeat, then spiked so hot the wallpaper started peeling. Red lightning crackled across Izuku's skin, arcing off his small frame like he was a human Tesla coil. He grabbed the steel spike with both hands. The villain tried to pull back, tried to retract his quirk, but Izuku held the metal firm. Then, with a grunt that sounded more irritated than pained, the 10-year-old pulled the spike forward, dragging it through his own body, out through his chest and tossing it aside like a piece of trash. The hole in his chest closed. Skin knitted over muscle. Muscle threaded over bone. In 3 seconds, there was nothing left but a blood stain on a ruined shirt. The villain stumbled backward. What the hell are you?" A pulse of energy exploded outward from Izuku's body. Not a shockwave, something older, something that smelled like sulfur and ozone and ancient war. The apartment walls cracked. The windows blew out, the lights popped and went dead. And in Izuku's right hand, summoned from nothing, from somewhere beyond the world of quirks and heroes, a sword appeared. It was massive, far too large for a child to hold. A skull-hilted broadsword with a blade wider than Izuku's torso, wreathed in faint, crimson energy. It should have been impossible for a 10-year-old to lift. Izuku rested it on his shoulder like it weighed nothing. He looked at the villain. His red eyes glowed in the darkness of the blown-out apartment. A smirk, too sharp, too confident for a child, spread across his face. "Let's rock, baby!" The villain swung his spike arm. Izuku moved, not like a child, not like a hero. Like something that had been killing things since before humanity learned to write. He ducked the swing, pivoted, and brought the flat of the blade up in an uppercut that launched the 200-pound villain into the ceiling. Before gravity could reclaim the man, Izuku was already above him, somehow, delivering 3 slashes so fast they looked like a single red arc. The villain bounced off the ceiling, off the floor, off the ceiling again, juggled in the air like a volleyball. Each hit precise enough to hurt without killing. The villain crashed through the front door and landed in the hallway, unconscious before his body stopped sliding. Izuku landed on the apartment floor. The sword vanished. His eyes faded back to green. He looked at his mom, at Inko, who was frozen on the floor, tears still streaming, mouth still open in a scream that had died somewhere in her throat. "Mom?" Izuku's voice was small again, a child's voice. "I'm okay, I promise." Inko stared at her son, at the blood on his shirt, at the hole in the wall, at the unconscious villain in the hallway. Then she lunged forward and pulled him into a hug so tight he thought she might actually succeed where the spike had failed. "My baby," she sobbed. "My baby, my baby, my baby." Izuku hugged her back. He didn't fully understand what had just happened. He didn't know why he could do what he'd just done. He didn't know why his body had healed, why the sword had appeared, why his eyes had turned red, or why some deep old part of him had known exactly how to fight. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty: he wasn't normal. He had never been normal. And whatever he was, it was something the world wasn't ready for. The doctors couldn't explain it. They ran blood tests, quirk evaluations, MRI scans, genetic panels. Izuku's quirk registration had always read Quirkless. The extra joint in his pinky toe confirmed it. He had no quirk factor, no mutation, no emitter glands, nothing. But his blood wasn't human, not entirely. The hematologists found proteins that shouldn't exist, enzymes with no classification, cell structures that regenerated faster than anything in medical science. His DNA had sequences that matched no known organism on Earth. "Mrs. Midoriya," the lead doctor said, clipboard trembling slightly in his hands, "your son is something we've never encountered before. His physiology isn't quirk-based. It's something else entirely. Something we don't have a name for." Inko sat in the hospital chair, hands folded in her lap, and said nothing for a long time. Then she went home, sat at the kitchen table, and opened the letter Hisashi had left before he vanished. The one she'd never opened because part of her had always been afraid of what it would say. It said a lot of things, most of them impossible, all of them true. Hisashi Midoriya was not human. He had never been human. The man Inko had married, the man who had held baby Izuku in his arms with such overwhelming tenderness, he was something ancient, something powerful beyond mortal comprehension. A demon, not the kind from folklore or religion, the real kind. The kind that existed in a dimension parallel to Earth, separated by barriers that had held for millennia. His true name was Sparda, the legendary Dark Knight, a demon of unimaginable power who had, 2,000 years ago, turned against his own kind to protect humanity, who had sealed the gates between worlds, who had given up his power, his throne, his immortality, all of it to live as a man, to love a woman, to raise a son, but the barriers were weakening, and Sparda had enemies, old ones, powerful ones. So he had left. Not because he didn't love them, the letter made that painfully, achingly clear, but because staying would have painted a target on their backs. He failed anyway. The target was already there, it was in Izuku's blood. The letter ended with 3 words: "Protect our son." Inko cried for 3 hours. Then she dried her eyes, folded the letter, and made a decision. She couldn't protect Izuku from what he was, but she could make sure he grew up kind. She could make sure that whatever power lived in his blood, whatever violence lurked in his heritage, it would serve something good. She told Izuku everything, all of it, about his father, about what he was, about the demon blood that ran in his veins. Izuku listened. He was 10 years old. He should have been terrified. He should have been confused. Instead, he leaned back on the couch, put his hands behind his head, and grinned. "So I'm half demon," he said. "That's pretty sick, actually." Inko blinked. "Izuku, does this mean I can do more cool stuff? Like, that sword was awesome. Can I make it come back? Can I shoot lasers? Can I fly?" "Izuku, this is serious. I know. He sat up, and for a moment his expression softened. The cocky grin faded into something real, something warm. "I know it's serious, Mom, but I'm not scared. Whatever I am, I'm still me. I'm still your kid. And if Dad left so he could keep us safe, then I'm going to make sure his sacrifice wasn't for nothing." He punched his palm. "I'm going to be the strongest hero this world has ever seen. No demon, no villain, nobody's going to touch you ever again. That's a promise." Inko started crying again, but this time, she was smiling. Over the next 5 years, Izuku trained. Not the way other kids trained. He didn't go to dojos, he didn't lift weights, he didn't study combat theory in books. His body already knew how to fight. The knowledge was coded into his blood, inherited from a demon who had waged war for millennia. What Izuku needed to learn was control. He could summon rebellion at will by age 11. The broadsword answered to his bloodline. It appeared when he called it, vanished when he dismissed it, and moved in his hands like an extension of his soul. He practiced in empty lots, in parks at night, in the woods outside the city. He learned how to swing it fast enough to create shockwaves. He learned how to channel demonic energy through the blade until it glowed red and cut through steel. By 12, the guns came. Ebony and ivory. Twin semi-automatic handguns, one black, one white. That materialized in his hands the first time he got into a fight with a group of thugs harassing an old woman near a convenience store. They didn't fire normal bullets. The rounds were compressed demonic energy. Fast, powerful, non-lethal against humans unless Izuku wanted them to be. He could fire them endlessly. No ammo, no reloading, just point and shoot. He spent months learning trick shots, ricochets off walls, bullets that curved midair. Shooting while spinning, while falling, while upside down. He watched action movies for inspiration. He played video games for style. He wasn't just learning to fight, he was learning to fight with flair. Because what was the point of being half demon if you couldn't look good doing it? By 13, he discovered the styles. Trickster, pure speed, pure evasion. Teleportation dashes, air dashes, after images. Made him untouchable. Swordmaster, full mastery of rebellion. Extended combos, aerial raves, special blade techniques. Stinger, drive, million stab, gunslinger, advanced firearm techniques. Rainstorm, two-time charged shots. Turned ebony and ivory from handguns into artillery. Royal Guard, the defensive's perfect parries that absorbed incoming force and stored it, then released it back at 10 times the power, the hardest to master, the most devastating when used right. By 14, Izuku could swap between all four mid-combat, seamlessly, effortlessly, like changing channels on a TV. And then there was the devil trigger. He'd felt it lurking since the night in the apartment, a deeper well of power, a transformation waiting behind a door in his soul. He touched it once at 14 during a training session that pushed him too hard. The transformation lasted 6 seconds. In those 6 seconds, he leveled an entire grove of trees without meaning to. He decided to save it. That power was a trump card. The ace up his sleeve for when things got truly serious. At 15, Izuku Midoriya was a force that defied classification. Not a hero, not a villain, not even a quirk user. Something entirely outside the system. He was ready for UH. The morning of the entrance exam, Izuku rolled out of bed at 10 a.m. The exam started at 11. He had plenty of time. He showered, styled his wild green hair so it fell just right, messy but intentionally messy, and pulled on his outfit, black jeans, black boots, a dark shirt, and over all of it, his pride and joy. A custom-made, ankle-length red leather trench coat. He'd saved up for months doing odd jobs to afford it. It was perfect. Long enough to billow in the wind, tailored enough to move in combat, and red enough to make a statement. He grabbed a slice of cold pizza from the fridge, breakfast of champions, and headed for the door. Izuku, Inko called from the kitchen. Good luck today. I packed you a lunch. Thanks, Mom. He leaned back in, kissed her on the cheek, and snagged the bento box. I'll be home by dinner. Save me some of that curry, yeah? Be careful. Always am. He wasn't, but she didn't need to know that. The walk to UA was uneventful. Izuku ate his pizza, bobbed his head to music only he could hear, and ignored the stares. The red coat drew attention. The massive, easy confidence in his stride drew more. He didn't walk like a nervous middle schooler hoping to pass an exam. He walked like he already owned the building. At the front gates of UA, hundreds of examinees gathered. Nervous energy everywhere. Kids stretching, psyching themselves up, reviewing notes, trembling with anxiety. The pressure of the most prestigious hero academy in Japan weighed on all of them like a physical force. Izuku stopped at the gates, pulled the last bite of pizza crust from his pocket, popped it in his mouth, and stared up at the building. Huh. Smaller than I expected. A boy with spiky blonde hair and a permanent scowl shouldered past him. Katsuki Bakugo. They'd gone to the same middle school. Bakugo had tried to bully him once, back in elementary school. Izuku had caught his explosion with one hand, winked, and walked away. Bakugo hadn't spoken to him since, just stared at him with a mix of fury and something that might have been fear. Out of my way, Bakugo growled. Morning to you too, sunshine. Izuku said without looking at him. Bakugo's palms crackled. He kept walking. Inside, the auditorium presentation was boring. Present Mike explained the point system, 1, 2, and 3 pointers plus a 0 pointer that was worth nothing. Izuku leaned back in his seat, feet on the chair in front of him, and almost fell asleep. A tall kid with glasses stood up and complained about Izuku's posture, something about disrespecting the institution. Izuku gave him a lazy salute and didn't move his feet. Then they were bussed to the exam site, Battle Center B, a fake city, full of robots worth various points. 10 minutes on the clock. Highest score gets in. Izuku stood at the starting gate, surrounded by other examinees. A girl with brown hair and rosy cheeks stood nearby, looking nervous. She had a round face and kind eyes. Cute. In a girl next doorway, she noticed him looking and gave a shy wave. Good luck. Izuku shot her a 2-finger salute. Don't need it, but thanks. She blinked. Before she could respond, start! Present Mike's voice exploded from the speakers. No countdown. No warning. Just go. Half the examinees froze, hesitated, waited for a signal that had already come. Izuku vanished. 1 second he was standing at the gate. The next, gone. A burst of wind where he'd been, a flicker of red. The trickster dash carried him 300 meters in an eye blink, and he reappeared on top of a 3-pointer robot, crouching on its head like a gargoyle. Yo, he said to the robot. It swiveled its sensors, like trying to identify the threat directly above it. Izuku stood up, reached into his coat, and drew ebony and ivory. The guns gleamed, one jet black, one pearl white. He twirled them on his fingers, flipped them, caught them in a reverse grip, then aimed them down. 2 shots. 2 clean holes through the robot's processing core. It collapsed beneath him. He backflipped off the falling machine, landed on the street, and looked up. Robots were pouring in from every direction. Dozens of them. 1s, 2s, 3s. Izuku cracked his neck, rolled his shoulders. This party's getting crazy. Let's rock. He broke into a sprint, not running toward the robots, but through them. Rebellion materialized in his right hand, and he swung it in a wide horizontal arc that carved through 3 1-pointers simultaneously. The machines split apart at the waist, their upper halves sliding off their lower halves in a shower of sparks, a 2-pointer charged from behind. Izuku didn't turn around. He pointed ivory over his shoulder and fired twice. The robot's head exploded. 3 more came from the left. Izuku planted Rebellion's tip in the ground, pole vaulted over the lead robot, and while inverted in the air, rainstorm! He crossed his guns below him and fired. Not individual shots, a torrent. A waterfall of bullets that rained down in a spiral, each one punching through robotic armor like tinfoil. The 3 robots were reduced to scrap in seconds. Izuku landed in a crouch, coat settling around him. A street full of robots ahead, at least 15, all converging. Izuku ran toward them, jumped, and landed on the closest 3-pointer. He surfed on it. Actually surfed on it, 1 foot on its head, arms out for balance, riding the machine like a skateboard as it charged forward into its allies. He was laughing. Woo, this is way better than studying! He leaped off just before impact, letting the 3-pointer crash into a cluster of its allies. While they were tangled, he dismissed his guns and gripped Rebellion with both hands. Stinger! He shot forward in a straight line thrust so fast he broke the sound barrier. A sonic boom cracked behind him. Rebellion's tip punched through 4 robots lined up perfectly, shish kebab style, and Izuku skidded to a stop 40 meters past them, the machines detonating behind him in a chain. He stood up straight, flipped his hair out of his eyes. Man, these things are flimsy. From a monitor room high above the exam site, a dozen UA teachers watched in stunned silence. What am I looking at? Midnight said, leaning forward. He's not even trying, Ectoplasm observed. No quirk registration on file, Principal Nezu noted, sipping tea from a tiny cup. How curious, how very, very curious. All Might, emaciated, skeletal hidden in his true form, watched the green-haired boy carve through the exam like it was a warm-up. His sunken eyes were wide. Something stirred in the back of his mind, a memory, a name. Sparda, no, it couldn't be. On the ground, Izuku's kill count was climbing absurdly fast. He wasn't hunting robots, he was styling on them, using them as springboards, as projectile weapons against other robots, as dance partners. At one point, he grabbed a 1-pointer by the arm, spun it like a discus, and bowled it into a group of 3-pointers for a strike. Spare, he announced to no one in particular. Other examinees had stopped fighting just to watch. The girl with brown hair, Uraraka, had her hands pressed to her cheeks, mouth hanging open. A boy with a bird head stood frozen mid-step. A tall girl with a ponytail had her notebook out, furiously writing. Then the ground shook. The zero-pointer emerged, a machine the size of a building. It rose from behind the city skyline, massive treads crushing everything in its path. The ground splintered. Buildings crumbled. A shockwave of dust and debris rolled outward. Examinees ran, screamed, fled toward the exit gates. All except Izuku. He stood in the middle of the street, looking up at the colossal machine with mild interest, like a man examining a slightly unusual cloud. Then he heard it. A voice, small, scared, in pain. "Help! Someone! Please!" Uraraka, trapped under a slab of concrete that had fallen on her leg when the zero-pointer's tread split the road. She couldn't move. The machine was bearing down on her. 30 seconds until she was crushed, Izuku sighed. Not out of annoyance at her, at the situation, at the inconvenience, at the fact that he'd been having such a good time and now he had to get serious. He rolled his shoulders, cracked his neck. "All right, big guy, you just ruined my fun." Rebellion vanished. Izuku dropped into a low stance. Demonic energy flared around his body, visible now, a red aura that made the air shimmer and ripple. He focused it into his legs, then he moved. The trickster dash covered the distance to Uraraka in an instant. He appeared beside her, grabbed the concrete slab with one hand, and tossed it aside like a cardboard box. She stared up at him, eyes wide, cheeks flushed from pain and fear. "You good?" he asked, offering his hand. Yes, but the robot." He pulled her to her feet. "I got this. Stay behind me." He turned to face the zero-pointer. It was 20 meters away. 15. 10. Its massive fist was already swinging down, a blow that would flatten half the street. Izuku drew Rebellion. He held it at his side, tip pointed back, body coiled, Swordmaster style. "Stinger." He said it softly this time, almost casually. Then he launched forward. The distance between him and the zero-pointer disappeared. Rebellion's tip hit the robot's treads and kept going. Izuku punched through metal, through gears, through wiring, through the entire width of the machine. He exploded out the other side, red coat flaring behind him. Then he turned, raised Rebellion above his head, both hands on the hilt. Demonic energy surged into the blade until it glowed like a furnace. "Drive!" He swung. A crescent wave of red energy, 10 meters wide, launched from the blade. It screamed through the air, hit the zero-pointer dead center, and kept going. The machine didn't explode. It didn't collapse. It was cut, split perfectly in half from bottom to top. Two enormous halves teetered, groaned, and fell in opposite directions, crashing into the fake buildings on either side of the street with twin impacts that shook the ground for a quarter-mile. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Every examinee in Battle Center B had stopped. Every proctor had stopped. In the monitor room, no one breathed. Izuku rested Rebellion on his shoulder. He wasn't breathing hard. He wasn't sweating. He looked mildly satisfied, like a man who just finished a decent meal. He turned back to Uraraka. She was still standing where he'd left her, weight on her good leg, staring at him with her mouth hanging open. "You all right?" he asked again. "Can you walk?" You... That was... She couldn't form words. Her face was completely red, and it wasn't just from the exertion. Izuku grinned at her. An easy, warm grin that softened all the sharp edges of his earlier combat persona. "Take it easy. The exam's probably over anyway." The buzzer sounded. Present Mike's voice announced the end of the exam. Izuku dismissed Rebellion, stuffed his hands in his coat pockets, and started walking toward the exit. Behind him, Uraraka finally found her voice. "Wait, what's your name?" He half-turned, shooting her a lazy smile over his shoulder. "Midoriya. Izuku Midoriya." Then he kept walking, red coat billowing behind him. The results came a week later. Izuku had scored 77 villain points, the highest combat score in UA entrance exam history. He also received 45 rescue points for saving Uraraka, which he hadn't known were a thing. Total, 122 points. The previous record was 70. When Inko saw the holographitor from All Might congratulating her son, she cried so hard she used an entire box of tissues. Izuku just leaned against the kitchen counter, eating a strawberry sundae, and smiled. "Told you I'd get in," he said. "I never doubted it," she sniffed, blowing her nose. "I'm so proud of you, Izuku." He set down the sundae and gave her a real hug. No swagger, no persona, just her son. "Thanks, Mom, for everything." The first day at UA arrived with spring sunshine and cherry blossoms. Izuku walked through the halls of the Hero Course building wearing the standard UA uniform, gray blazer, white shirt, red tie, green pants, with one major modification. His red trench coat was draped over his shoulders like a cape, the sleeves hanging empty at his sides. He'd asked permission from the school. They'd said no. He'd worn it anyway. Classroom 1A. He found the room, pushed open the oversized door, and stepped inside. 18 students already seated. Conversations died. Heads turned. The effect was immediate. Something about the way he moved, the loose-limbed confidence, the faint smile, the coat draped over his frame like a king's mantle, changed the atmosphere of the room. People sat up straighter. Conversations dropped to whispers. Bakugo was in the back corner, arms crossed, scowling, his eyes locked onto Izuku with barely suppressed rage. The tall boy with glasses, Tenya Ida, stood up immediately. "You, from the auditorium. I must apologize for my rudeness during the presentation. You clearly took the exam seriously, given your record-breaking score. I am Tenya Ida from..." "Same, Izuku said, already past him, heading for an empty seat near the window. "Relax, big guy, we're good." Ida blinked rapidly, processing the casual dismissal. Uraraka waved from 2 rows over. "Midoriya, we're in the same class. Isn't that great?" "Hey, Uraraka." He dropped into his seat, leaning back on 2 legs. "How's the ankle?" "All better. Recovery girl fixed me up. That was amazing what you did, by the way. Cutting that robot in half, I still can't believe." "If you're done socializing," a voice came from the floor. Everyone looked down. A man lay on the floor at the front of the classroom, wrapped in a yellow sleeping bag. He had long black hair, tired eyes, and a dry expression that radiated pure done-with-everything energy. He unzipped the sleeping bag, stood up, and pulled out a juice pouch. "I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. Pro hero name, Eraserhead." He took a long sip. "You all took 8 seconds to shut up. That's time wasted. Put on your gym clothes. We're going outside." The quirk apprehension test. Aizawa explained it on the field, a series of physical tests. Ball throw, dash, grip strength, standing jump, and more. The lowest scorer gets expelled. "Sounds fun," Izuku said, hands behind his head. Aizawa's tired eyes slid to him. "Midoriya, you scored highest on the entrance exam. Impressive. But raw power means nothing without." He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes flashed. The telltale activation of his quirk, Erasure. The ability to nullify any quirk he looked at as long as his eyes remained open. The other students felt it. Some flinched. Those with physical mutation quirks felt their bodies shift, their powers suppressed. Izuku felt nothing. His coat blew in the wind. That was it. Aizawa stared at him, stared hard. His quirk was active. He could feel it working, reaching out, trying to grab onto something in the green-haired boy. But there was nothing there. No quirk factor to erase. Nothing for his power to latch onto. It was like trying to erase the color of someone's eyes. It wasn't a power. It was just what he was. Izuku caught the stare. He grinned. "You staring at me, Teach? You got a crush or something?" He winked. Aizawa's eye twitched. He deactivated his quirk. His expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. A new tension, a wariness that hadn't been there before. "Get in line," Aizawa said flatly. "We're starting." The tests began, and Izuku treated them the way he treated everything, like a game. The 50-meter dash, 0.8 seconds. He used a trickster dash. The measuring device glitched and had to be recalibrated twice before they accepted the reading. Grip strength, he broke the dynamometer, literally crushed it. Aizawa had to mark it as immeasurable. Standing long jump, he cleared the entire sandbox and the field behind it. They found him sitting on a fence 200 meters away, waving. Ball throw. He held the softball in his hand, wound up, and threw. It didn't leave the atmosphere. But the tracking device read 1,200 meters before it gave up. He'd infused the ball with demonic energy. It was probably still rolling somewhere in a neighboring prefecture. By the time they got to the endurance tests, the other students weren't even pretending not to stare. Whispers filled the field. Is he even human? Damien. What kind of quirk is that? That's not a quirk. Did you see Aizawa try to erase him? Nothing happened. Then what is he? Bakugo was vibrating. His hands hadn't stopped sparking since the 3rd test. Every number Izuku put up was so far beyond the competition that it wasn't even a contest. It was a joke. And Bakugo, who had spent his entire life being the strongest, the best, the undeniable number 1, was watching someone make a mockery of every standard he'd ever set. The last test was the ball throw for the remaining students. Bakugo stepped up. He wound his arm back, poured every ounce of his explosion quirk into his palm, and unleashed. The ball rocketed away, 705 meters. An incredible score by any normal standard. Bakugo turned, chest heaving, and looked directly at Izuku, a challenge in his eyes. A desperate, furious dare. Izuku was sitting on the ground, eating an energy bar, not paying attention. That did it. Bakugo snapped. "Hey!" He stormed toward Izuku, explosions popping off his palms. "Look at me when I'm..." "Bakugo," Aizawa warned. "Talking to you, you arrogant piece of..." Izuku looked up. "Oh, hey, nice throw, man. Solid 700. Don't patronize me." Bakugo's right hand came up, fingers spread, palm glowing with barely contained detonation. "I'm gonna blow that smug look off your..." He fired. Point blank. A full-force explosion aimed directly at Izuku's face. The other students gasped. Someone screamed. Aizawa's capture weapon shot out. Too slow. Izuku didn't dodge. He didn't move. He crossed his arms in front of his face, and the air between him and the explosion solidified. A red, octagonal energy shield materialized, translucent, glowing, ancient symbols etched along its edges. Royal Guard. The explosion hit the shield. It should have blasted through, should have overwhelmed any defense. Bakugo's explosions could level buildings. The shield absorbed it, all of it. Every joule of kinetic and thermal energy poured into the barrier and vanished. Stored, compressed, waiting. The smoke cleared. Izuku stood there, arms crossed, completely unharmed. Not a hair out of place, not a scorch mark on his coat. Bakugo stared. His hand was still extended, smoking, trembling. Izuku lowered his arms. He was smiling, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of something that found this whole situation adorable. "Not bad," Izuku said. He uncrossed his arms and extended one hand, palm open, fingers splayed. Red energy gathered in his palm, dense and hot and screaming with compressed force. "Now here's yours back." Release. He touched Bakugo's chest. The effect was instantaneous. Every ounce of force from Bakugo's explosion, amplified tenfold by the demonic energy that had compressed it, erupted outward in a single pulse. Bakugo didn't fly. He was launched like a cannonball. His body ragdolled across the field at inhuman speed, hit the wall of the gym building 100 meters away, and embedded in the concrete with a crack that echoed across the campus. Silence. Complete, stupefied silence. Bakugo peeled himself out of the wall, coughing, trembling, bleeding from his nose and mouth. He was conscious. Barely. His entire body ached in ways he couldn't describe. Every bone felt like it had been struck with a tuning fork. Izuku dusted off his hands. He looked at Aizawa, who had stopped mid-motion, capture weapon still half extended, face frozen in genuine surprise. "He attacked me first," Izuku said with a shrug. "Self-defense, right?" Aizawa stared at him for a long, measuring moment, then he retracted his capture weapon. "Bakugo. Infirmary. The rest of you, go change. We're done." No one argued, no one spoke. They filed toward the locker rooms in stunned silence, Kair stealing glances back at the green-haired boy in the red coat who stood alone on the field, stretching his arms above his head like he'd just finished a light jog. Uraraka lingered at the edge of the group, looking back at him. Her expression was complicated. Amazement, concern, fascination, and something else. Something warmer. Izuku caught her eye and gave her a peace sign. She turned red and hurried into the building. Word spread fast. By the end of the first day, everyone in the hero course knew about Izuku Midoriya. By the end of the first week, the entire school knew. The kid in Class 1A who broke every record on the quirk apprehension test, who couldn't be erased by Eraserhead, who sent Katsuki Bakugo through a wall with his own explosion, who wore a red coat like a battle flag, who treated everything like a joke except the things that mattered. The rumors were wild. He was a secret weapon. He was All Might's son. He was a villain infiltrating the school. He was a government experiment. He was an alien. The truth was stranger than all of it. In the classroom, Izuku was complicated. He was lazy about academics, not because he was stupid, but because he found them boring. He scored well enough on tests to pass, but never pushed himself beyond that. His notes were sparse, his homework was often late, and he fell asleep in class at least twice a week. But in combat training, in hero exercises, in anything physical, he was untouchable, and he knew it. The thing that surprised people most wasn't his power. It was his personality. Izuku Midoriya was funny, he was charming, he was warm beneath the swagger. He remembered people's names, asked about their days, shared snacks, and made jokes that actually landed. He wasn't cruel or cold, he was just confident. Impossibly, effortlessly confident in a way that made you either love him or hate him, with very little room in between. Uraraka gravitated toward him naturally. She sat near him at lunch, partnered with him in exercises when she could, and laughed at his jokes even when they weren't that funny. Their dynamic was easy. He teased, she pushed back, he grinned, she blushed. It was simple and genuine and growing. Ida was more complex. He respected Izuku's ability, but found his attitude frustrating. A hero should carry themselves with dignity, he'd say, chopping his hands. Izuku would respond by balancing a pencil on his nose. But over time, Ida came to respect something deeper in Izuku, the way he moved without hesitation to protect people, the way he never flinched, never hesitated, never needed a reason to help beyond someone needed it. Todoroki watched from a distance, silent, assessing. The son of the number 2 hero saw something in Izuku that bothered him, a freedom of movement, an absence of weight. Izuku fought like nothing in the world could chain him, and Todoroki, who carried his father's legacy like an anchor around his neck, found that both enviable and infuriating. And Bakugo burned. Not with hatred, something deeper, something worse. The realization that there was someone in the world he couldn't overcome through pure aggression and willpower. Someone who outclassed him so completely that his greatest attack was returned to him like change from $1. It was existential. It shook the foundation of everything Bakugo had built his identity on. He didn't challenge Izuku again. Not yet. But he trained harder than he'd ever trained. Woke up earlier. Stayed later. Pushed his quirk past every limit he'd ever set. Because one day, he would stand in front of that red-coated bastard and make him take him seriously. One day. Weeks passed. The rhythm of UA settled into something almost normal. Classes, training, lunch, study. Heroes in training, learning to be heroes. Then the USJ happened. The unforeseen simulation joint, a massive training facility with multiple disaster zones, flood, fire, landslide, storm, collapse. Class 1A arrived for rescue training under the supervision of their teachers, Aizawa and 13. They arrived to find the facility already occupied. A swirling black portal opened in the central plaza. From it poured villains. Dozens of them. Small-time thugs with combat quirks, organized and armed. And at the center of the portal, 2 figures. One, a young man with pale blue hair, a severed hand covering his face, and a posture that twitched with barely contained instability. Tamura Shigaraki, leader of the League of Villains. 2, a massive creature, jet black, brain exposed, beak-faced, muscular beyond human proportion. The Nomu, a bioengineered weapon built for one purpose, to kill All Might. Huh, Izuku said, standing at the top of the entrance stairs with his classmates. He looked down at the villain army with mild interest. Field trip just got interesting. Everyone stay back, Aizawa commanded, his capture weapon unfurled. 13, protect the students. I'm going. I'll come with you, Izuku said, already walking past him toward the stairs. Midoriya, get back with your teach. Izuku stopped, looked over his shoulder. His eyes were already starting to shift, green bleeding into red at the edges. You can erase quirks, that's useful down there, but half those guys are going to rush past you while you're dealing with the other half. You need someone to handle the overflow. He grinned. I'll be your cleanup crew. Aizawa wanted to argue. Every professional instinct told him to keep his students out of danger. But he'd seen what this kid could do. He'd seen the test results, the combat evaluations, the medical reports that said his regeneration was beyond anything in recorded quirk history. Stay alive, Aizawa said. Always do. They moved together. Aizawa leaped into the fray first, his capture weapons snaring villains left and right, his erasure shutting down quirks before they could activate. He was efficient, professional, a veteran. Izuku was not professional. Izuku was a tornado wearing a red coat. He dropped into the central plaza from 30 meters up. No parachute, no concern for the landing. He hit the ground in a crouch that cracked the tile, stood up smoothly, and drew ebony and ivory. 12 villains turned to face him. Izuku spun both guns on his fingers. So, who's first? They charged. The first villain, a big guy with rock-hard skin, got 3 bullets to the chest. They didn't pierce his skin. They didn't need to. The demonic rounds hit with the force of sledgehammers, and the villain flew backward into two of his allies, bowling them over. The second, a fast woman with blade arms, lunged in from the side. Izuku leaned away from her slash like he was dodging a friend's playful swipe, shot her in the knee, and kicked her into the fountain. 3 and 4 came together. Izuku holstered his guns and drew Rebellion. One swing, a wide, arcing slash that generated enough wind pressure to fling both villains into the ceiling of the flood zone, 60 meters away. The remaining 8 hesitated. They just watched their allies get dismantled in 4 seconds by a teenager. Izuku rested Rebellion on his shoulder. "Come on, guys. I haven't even warmed up yet." They ran. Not at him. Away. Boring, Izuku sighed. But the Nomu wasn't boring. It came without warning. One moment, Izuku was standing in the plaza, the next, a black blur. A fist the size of a car door slammed into his chest with force that could have flattened a building. Izuku flew. Not gently. He was launched across the central plaza, through the fountain, through the water, through the concrete base of the fountain, and into the far wall. The impact shattered stone in a 20-foot radius. For the first time all day, Izuku felt something. Pain. He pushed himself out of the crater in the wall, blood running from his mouth, coat torn at the shoulder. He looked at the Nomu across the plaza. The thing stood there, motionless, empty-eyed, waiting for its next command. Shigaraki stood behind it, scratching his neck. So that's the kid. The one who broke the exam record. He doesn't look so tough. Izuku spat blood, wiped his mouth, and laughed. "Okay," he said, rolling his shoulder. The torn coat was already mending itself, the fabric woven through with his demonic energy, repairing just like his body. The bruises on his chest faded. The blood stopped flowing. That actually stung. Props. He cracked his knuckles, drew Rebellion, pointed the blade at the Nomu. "Come on, then." Ugly. Round 2. The Nomu charged. Izuku met it head-on. Rebellion came down in a vertical slash aimed at the Nomu's shoulder. The blade bit into the creature's skin, but didn't cut deep. The Nomu's body absorbed the impact. Shock absorption. The kinetic energy of the sword dissipated on contact. The Nomu countered with a punch. Izuku dashed, Trickster, appearing behind the creature and delivering a horizontal slash to its spine. Again, minimal damage. The shock absorption neutralized the force. Izuku said, dodging another punch. "You soak up physical damage." He fired Ivory into the Nomu's eye. The bullet hit, the creature flinched, but the wound started closing immediately. "And you heal. Cute." The Nomu's next punch came faster. Izuku blocked with Rebellion's flat, and the force drove his boots across the ground, carving trenches in the tile. He slid 10 meters before stopping. "Super regeneration and shock absorption," Izuku said, thinking out loud. "So hitting you hard doesn't work, and you heal from anything that gets through." He sheathed Rebellion, dismissed it into nothing. His eyes were fully red now. His voice had dropped an octave. "Good thing I don't just hit hard." The Nomu attacked again. Its fist came down like a meteor. Izuku caught it, one hand, fingers wrapped around the massive fist. The ground beneath his feet shattered into a crater. His arm trembled. Demonic energy flared across his skin in crimson arcs, but he held. "You know," Izuku said through gritted teeth, "I've been holding back because I'm at school. Don't want to scare the other kids." He squeezed the Nomu's fist. Bones cracked. "But you're not a kid, and you're not a person, so I'm going to stop being polite." The Nomu swung its other fist. It caught Izuku in the ribs. He heard them break, felt the spike of pain. Didn't care, because the healing factor was already working. Bones reset, tissue repaired, pain faded. In the time it took the Nomu to rear back for another hit, Izuku was already whole. "My turn," Izuku said. He gripped the Nomu's fist tighter and pulled. The creature stumbled forward. Izuku's knee came up, infused with demonic energy, glowing red, hot enough to make the air shimmer, and slammed into the Nomu's chest. Not with physical force that could be absorbed, with something older, something that existed outside the realm of quirks, demonic energy. It wasn't kinetic. It wasn't thermal. It wasn't any kind of force that shock absorption was designed to handle. It was spiritual, otherworldly, a power source that predated humanity. The Nomu staggered. For the first time, it showed something like pain. Its mouth opened in a silent roar. "Oh," Izuku said, grinning with bloody teeth. "You felt that one." He summoned Rebellion, poured his demonic energy into the blade until it screamed with power, until the metal was so hot it was white, until the air around it distorted like a heat mirage. Shock absorption doesn't work on magic, does it? Let me test that theory. Izuku swung. Not hard, not fast. But the blade was wreathed in so much otherworldly energy that the concept of force was irrelevant. The slash carved into the Nomu's chest, and this time it cut. Deep. Black blood sprayed. The wound sizzled, and it didn't heal. Shigaraki's scratching intensified. What is he? That's not possible. Nomu was designed to... Izuku didn't let up. He unleashed a combo. Slash after slash after slash, each one carrying demonic energy, each one burning the Nomu from the inside out. The creature tried to fight back, threw punches, grabbed at Izuku, tried to crush him. But Izuku was in Trickster now, phasing between positions like a ghost, never where the Nomu expected, always cutting. But it wasn't enough. The Nomu was regenerating, slower than before, fighting against the demonic corruption, but still healing. Its engineered biology was pushing back against the foreign energy, closing wounds, regrowing tissue. Izuku needed more. He needed everything. He jumped back, put distance between himself and the Nomu. 20 meters. 30. His classmates were watching from the entrance stairs. I held back by 13, but unable to look away. Todoroki's dual-colored eyes were wide. Bakugo's fists were clenched so hard his knuckles were white. Uraraka had both hands pressed over her mouth. Izuku planted Rebellion's tip in the ground. He gripped the hilt with both hands, and he reached inside himself. Down. Deep. Past the surface power, past the demonic energy he used daily. Down to the door. The one he'd touched once 5 years ago. He opened it. The sky darkened, not figuratively. The actual sky above the USJ dome, the simulated weather systems, the artificial light, flickered and died. The only illumination came from Izuku. From the pillar of energy that erupted from his body, it was crimson, blinding. A tower of power so dense it had physical weight, everyone in the facility felt it pressing down on them like gravity had doubled, tripled. The ground cracked around Izuku in expanding rings. The air screamed. Reality itself seemed to bend around him, like the world was acknowledging something ancient had just woken up. His body changed. The green hair bled to white. His skin darkened to a deep, armored crimson. His frame grew, not hugely, but enough. His shoulders broadened, his fingers elongated into claws. His coat merged with his body, becoming part of his demonic armor, scarlet and black, organic and metallic, ancient and deadly. Wings unfurled from his back, not feathered, not scaled, but something in between. Leathery, glowing at the membranes with inner fire. His eyes opened, pure burning red. No pupil, no iris, just light, devil trigger. The Nomu charged him again. Some biological imperative driving it forward despite every signal screaming danger. It threw its best punch, all its enhanced strength behind a single blow. Izuku caught the fist. This time there was no struggle, no trembling, no effort. He closed his hand, the Nomu's fist crumbled. Bones powdered. Tissue pulped. The creature lurched back, trying to regenerate, but Izuku was already moving. He grabbed the Nomu by its exposed brain and lifted it off the ground, one-handed. The creature weighed at least a ton. Izuku held it like it weighed nothing. Then his wings beat once, and they were in the air. Through the ceiling of the USJ, through the dome, into the sky above, 50 meters up. 100. 200. The students below were specks. Izuku held the Nomu at arm's length, looked it in its empty, agonized eyes. Nothing personal, he said. His voice was doubled now, his own, layered with something deeper, older. But you're in my way. He released the creature. It hung in the air for a moment, weightless at the apex of its ascent. Izuku drew Rebellion. The sword was different now, larger, wreathed in black fire, singing with power. Million stab. His arm blurred. Not fast. Beyond anything human eyes could track. He stabbed the Nomu in 100 places in less than a second. Each thrust carried enough demonic energy to melt steel. Each wound burned from the inside, cauterizing faster than regeneration could respond. The creature's body came apart under the onslaught, not cut to pieces, but unmade. Its regeneration couldn't keep up. Its shock absorption was meaningless against spiritual destruction. By the time Izuku's arms stopped, the Nomu was done. He pointed Ebony downward at the remains of the creature as it fell. Don't come back. A single charged shot. A bolt of compressed demonic energy the size of a basketball. It hit the Nomu's remnants and detonated, blasting the creature out of the USJ entirely. Over the horizon. Into the distant skyline. Gone. Izuku hung in the air for a moment, wings spread, silhouetted against the gray sky. From below, he must have looked like a devil or an angel. or something in between. He descended, slowly. His wings folded as he dropped. The demonic armor faded. The crimson skin paled back to human. The white hair bled back to green. By the time his boots touched the cracked tile of the central plaza, he was Izuku again. A 15-year-old boy in a red coat, breathing hard for the first time all day. The transformation had taken a lot out of him. Not physically, his body could handle it, but his stamina wasn't infinite yet. He needed to grow into that power. Still, he was standing. The Nomu was not. Shigaraki stared at him. The hand on his face trembled. Behind the severed fingers, his eyes were wide, not with anger, not with frustration, with fear. "What are you?" Shigaraki whispered. Izuku rolled his shoulder, cracked his neck. His eyes were green again, but the faintest ring of red still glowed at their edges. "Izuku Midoriya," he said. "Hero Course, Class 1A." He winked. "Nice to meet you." Shigaraki backed up. 1 step, 2. His hand reached toward Izuku. The decay quirk, capable of disintegrating anything he touched, but something in his gut told him not to. Some primal survival instinct older than reason. "Kurogiri," Shigaraki hissed. "We're leaving." The black mist villain materialized a portal. Shigaraki stepped backward into it, eyes never leaving Izuku. "This isn't over," Shigaraki said. "We'll be back, with something that can kill even you." Izuku gave him a peace sign. "I'll be waiting. Bring pizza." The portal closed, and then there was silence. Izuku stood alone in the central plaza. Craters surrounded him. The fountain was destroyed. Scorch marks covered the ground. The ceiling of the USJ had a hole in it shaped roughly like a person. From the entrance stairs, someone started clapping. It was Kirishima, the red-headed boy with the hardening quirk. He was clapping so hard his palms were turning red, tears in his eyes, a massive grin splitting his face. "That was the manliest thing I've ever seen." The floodgates broke. Other students started shouting, cheering, running down the stairs toward the plaza. The tension shattered. The fear melted. What was left was awe, pure, overwhelming awe. Uraraka reached him first. She stopped a meter away, breathing hard from running, eyes wet, looking at him like she was making sure he was real. "You're okay," she said. "Not a question, a confirmation." "Yeah," Izuku said, and he smiled. A real one, not a smirk or a grin or a tease, just genuine warmth. "I'm okay." She punched him in the arm, hard enough to actually feel it. "Don't scare me like that again." "No promises." Aizawa limped up behind the students. He was injured, his arm was broken, his face was bleeding, and his capture weapon was in tatters. But he was alive. Because Izuku had drawn the Nomu's attention before it could finish what it started, he looked at Izuku. Izuku looked back. Neither said anything, but something passed between them. Respect, maybe, or understanding, or the acknowledgement that this kid was something Aizawa had never encountered in his career and might never encounter again. "Good work, Midoriya," Aizawa said. From Eraserhead, that was practically a standing ovation. The aftermath of the USJ incident was enormous. News broke within hours. A villain attack on UA, the nation's most prestigious hero school. Students in danger. Teachers injured. The media swarmed the campus like locusts, but the story that dominated every news cycle, every social media platform, every hero forum and underground chat room was the student who fought back. Cell phone footage existed, shaky, taken from the entrance stairs by Kaminari's phone. It showed a distant red figure engaging the Nomu. It showed the pillar of crimson light. It showed a winged silhouette rising through the ceiling with a monster in its grip. It showed a god being born. The video went viral in hours. Millions of views, hundreds of millions of comments. Every hero analyst in Japan was dissecting it frame by frame. News anchors debated what they'd seen. Was it a quirk, a transformation, something else entirely? UA released a statement. All students are safe. The situation was resolved with no casualties. They didn't name Izuku. They didn't have to. The internet figured it out within a day. The red coat, the devil of UA, the demon student. Nicknames proliferated. Izuku, for his part, slept through most of the media frenzy. He came to school the next day eating a strawberry sundae somehow at 8 in the morning and seemed completely unbothered by the fact that he was now the most talked about person in Japan under the age of 20. "Midoriya," reporters shouted at the gates. "What is your quirk? Can you comment on the attack? Are you..." Izuku pulled out his phone, took a selfie with the media scrum in the background, and walked into the building without answering a single question. Inside the school, the atmosphere had changed. Students from other classes lingered in the halls near 1A, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. Some were starstruck, some were nervous. A few from Class 1B openly hostile, jealous of the attention, doubting the footage, insisting it had to be exaggerated. One of them, a boy named Monoma, confronted Izuku directly in the hallway. "So you're the supposed demon everyone's talking about," Monoma said, voice dripping with condescension. "Funny. You don't look like much. I bet if I copied your quirk." He reached out and grabbed Izuku's hand. Nothing happened. Monoma's eyes widened. His quirk, copy, activated on contact. It should have duplicated whatever power Izuku had. Instead, Monoma felt emptiness, a void where a quirk should be. And then, deeper, something old and massive and hungry. Something that looked back at him from the void. Monoma yanked his hand away like he'd touched a hot stove. His face was white. What are? Izuku leaned in close. Boo. Monoma stumbled backward, turned, and walked away very fast without another word. Izuku watched him go, chuckling. Then he felt a hand on his shoulder. He looked up. All Might. In his true form, the skeletal, emaciated one that only the staff and a few trusted students knew. But his eyes, even sunken, burned with intensity. "Young Midoriya, a word, please." The conversation happened in an empty teacher's lounge. Just the two of them. The door locked. All Might sat across from Izuku, hands folded. The contrast between them was almost absurd, the withered symbol of peace and the vibrant, cocky teenager lounging in a chair with his coat draped over the back. "I know what you are," All Might said. Izuku raised an eyebrow. "Bold opener. What am I?" "A cambion, half human, half demon." All Might's voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed emotion. "Your father was Sparda." That got Izuku's attention. He sat up slightly. "You knew my dad?" "Not personally, but I know the legends. Before I received my power, before One for All, I studied the histories, the old ones, the ones that predate Quirk Society." All Might leaned forward. 2,000 years ago, a demon sealed the gates between our world and the demon world. He gave up everything to protect humanity. I always thought it was a myth, a story. He looked at Izuku. "I don't think it's a story anymore." Izuku was silent for a moment, uncharacteristically so. Then he leaned back. My mom told me everything when I was 10, about my dad, about what he was, about what I am." He looked at his hand, opened it, closed it. "I never met him. He left before I could remember. But he left me this." He tapped his chest, where the spike had pierced him 5 years ago. "This body, this blood, this power. I figure the least I can do is use it right." All Might nodded. "You want to be a hero?" "Nah." Izuku grinned. "I am a hero. I just don't have the license yet." All Might laughed, a genuine, full-chested laugh that made his skeletal frame shake. It surprised even him. It had been months since he'd laughed like that. "Your father would be proud, I think." Izuku's grin softened. "Just a fraction." "Yeah, I hope so." They talked for another hour, about power, about responsibility, about the difference between strength and heroism, about the rising tide of villain activity and the cracks in hero society, about what it meant to be a symbol. Izuku listened more than he talked, which for him was saying something. When they parted, All Might offered his hand. Izuku shook it. "If you ever need guidance," All Might said, "I'm here." "Appreciate it, big guy. And hey," Izuku pointed at him, felt, "eat more. You look like you need about 40 pizzas." All Might smiled. "I'll consider it." The sports festival arrived 3 weeks later, UA's annual showcase, broadcast nationwide, watched by millions, attended by pro heroes scouting for interns. For most students, it was the biggest event of their young lives, a chance to prove themselves, to make a name. For Izuku, it was Tuesday. Just kidding, he doesn't call anything that. It was just another day. Another opportunity to have some fun. The stadium was packed. 80,000 people in the stands, millions watching from home. Present Mike's voice boomed over the speakers, whipping the crowd into a frenzy. "Ladies and gentlemen, the UA Sports Festival is here, and coming in first, the class that survived a real villain attack, Class 1A. The students marched into the stadium. Izuku walked at the back, hands in his coat pockets, looking around at the roaring crowd with the vague expression of someone waiting for a bus. Bakugo was chosen as class representative to give the opening speech. He walked to the microphone. "I'm gonna win," he said flatly. Then walked away. Boos from the crowd, outrage from other classes. Izuku laughed. The first event was an obstacle race, 4 kilometers, through a minefield, over a canyon, past giant robot sentries. No quirk restrictions. Start! Todoroki made the first move, a wave of ice that froze the exit, blocking everyone behind him. Smart. Aggressive. It would have worked against anyone else. Izuku vaulted over the ice wall with a single jump, landed on Todoroki's ice trail and surfed on it, boots sliding across the frozen surface like he'd done it 1,000 times. Thanks for the path, he called over his shoulder to a stunned Todoroki. The robots in the canyon were the same model as the entrance exam. Izuku drew ebony and ivory and shot them apart without breaking stride. One shot each. He didn't even aim. The bullets tracked, drawn to their targets by the faintest application of demonic will. The minefield at the end was supposed to be the great equalizer. Hidden explosives buried in the ground designed to slow everyone down and let the pack catch up. Izuku ran through it at full speed. Mines detonated under his feet. Explosions engulfed his body. He ran through them. The detonations didn't slow him down any more than walking through a sprinkler would slow a normal person. His healing factor repaired burns before they could fully form. His demonic durability treated the blasts as mild inconveniences. He crossed the finish line 3 minutes ahead of second place, Todoroki, who arrived looking windblown and frustrated. Third was Bakugo, practically frothing. Obstacle race complete. Present Mix screamed. First place, Izuku Midoriya, with the fastest time in sports festival history. The crowd exploded. Not just cheers, hysteria. This was the kid from the USJ video. The red coat, the devil. And he just made the most challenging obstacle race in UA history look like a morning jog. The second event was a cavalry battle. Teams of 4 stealing headbands with point values. Izuku's team, Uraraka, Zero Gravity, Tokoyami, and Hatsume gadgets, dominated without Izuku even needing to fight. He just stood at the top of the formation, arms crossed, grinning, while his teammates handled the chaos below. Nobody dared come near his team anyway. Then came the tournament. One-on-one battles, single elimination. The brackets were set. Izuku's first opponent was Shinso, a general studies student with a brainwashing quirk. His power activated when someone verbally responded to him. Clever. Dangerous against most opponents, Shinso stepped onto the stage. So you're the famous... Yeah, I know who I am. Izuku yawned. Let's do this. Your classmates talk about you like you're some kind of monster, Shinso said, trying to bait a response. Izuku tilted his head, then smirked. He walked forward. Shinso talked and talked and talked, trying desperately to get Izuku to respond. Izuku didn't say a word. He walked straight up to Shinso, flicked him on the forehead with one finger, and the boy flew out of bounds. Sorry, Izuku said to the crowd. I just don't have anything clever to say to that one. Match after match, opponent after opponent. Izuku dismantled them all. Kaminari tried to electrocute him. Izuku stood in the lightning, then grabbed Kaminari's hand and gently pushed him out of bounds while the boy short-circuited. Ida charged with Recipro Burst, blazing speed. Izuku used a trickster dash to appear behind him, tapped his back, and Ida's momentum carried him out of the ring. Tokoyami sent Dark Shadow at full power. Izuku fired a single shot from Ivory, a bullet charged with enough light-aspected energy to make Dark Shadow shrink to the size of a kitten. Then he walked over and placed a hand on Tokoyami's shoulder. Good fight, Birdman. For real. Bakugo, their semifinal match, the stadium went silent when they stepped onto the stage. Everyone remembered the quirk apprehension test, the explosion, the wall, the look on Bakugo's face as he peeled himself from concrete. Bakugo looked different now, not calmer. Never calm, but more focused, more contained. 3 weeks of training with a singular purpose had sharpened him. He wasn't the same kid who'd thrown a tantrum on the first day. He was still outmatched, but he was going to fight like he wasn't. I'm not going to lose to you, Bakugo said. No screaming, no cursing, just statement. Izuku regarded him. Something shifted in his eyes. Not pity. Izuku would never pity Bakugo because Bakugo would literally explode if he thought someone pitied him. Something else. Interest? Respect? Then don't, Izuku said. Begin. Bakugo opened with everything. Not a single explosion, a barrage. He developed new techniques in 3 weeks. AP shot, concentrated blast, stun grenade, blinding flashes. He was faster, smarter, more creative than he'd been on day one. Izuku didn't draw his weapons, didn't use rebellion, didn't summon his guns. He fought Bakugo with his body. Trickster dashes, unarmed strikes, grabs, and redirections. Not because he was holding back in a condescending way, because he wanted to give Bakugo a fight, not a massacre. Bakugo saw it, and it made him fight harder. Explosion after explosion. The stage cracked, the air filled with smoke and heat. Bakugo pushed himself past his limit, past the point of pain, past the barrier where his arms should have stopped working. And for one moment, one single brilliant moment, he got through. A right hook backed by an explosion caught Izuku on the chin, sent his head snapping to the side, drew a thin line of blood from the corner of his mouth. The crowd gasped. Bakugo froze. He'd landed a hit, a real hit. Izuku turned his head back, wiped the blood with his thumb, and grinned. "There it is," he said. "There's the Bakugo I've been waiting for." Then he appeared behind Bakugo, Trickster, and chopped him on the back of the neck with a precise, measured strike. Not enough to injure, just enough to drop. Bakugo's legs buckled. He fell to one knee, tried to stand, couldn't. His body had been pushed too far, and the final hit had been perfectly placed. He slammed his fist into the ground. "Midoriya is the winner!" Midnight announced. The crowd erupted. Bakugo stayed on one knee, head bowed, shaking. Izuku crouched in front of him, extended a hand. "You got me," he said, quietly so only Bakugo could hear. "That right hook? That was clean. You're getting better." Bakugo looked up. His eyes burned, not with defeat, with a fire that would never go out. He slapped Izuku's hand away and stood on his own, walked off the stage under his own power. Didn't look back, but he didn't curse, didn't scream, didn't explode. He was already thinking about the next fight. Izuku watched him go and smiled, not a smirk. A real, genuine smile. He respected that fire. He always had. The finals. Izuku Midoriya versus Shoto Todoroki. The stadium hummed with anticipation. This was the match everyone wanted to see. The top two students in the hero course, the son of Endeavor versus the son of a legend. Todoroki stepped onto the stage with his usual composure. His right side radiated cold, frost already forming on his arm, the half he relied on. The left, his fire side, remained dormant. A statement. A choice. A rebellion against his father. Izuku stepped onto the stage with his hands in his pockets. He looked Todoroki up and down, took in the frost, the dormant left side, the rigid expression. He'd heard the rumors. Everyone had. Todoroki Shoto, prodigy son of the number 2 hero Endeavor, trained by his father from birth, a dual quirk, ice and fire, but he only ever used the ice, refused to use his father's flames as an act of defiance. Izuku understood defiance, he respected it, but he also recognized self-sabotage. "Todoroki," Izuku said, "you're going to use everything you've got in this fight." Todoroki's expression didn't change. "I'll win with my mother's power alone." "No, you won't." The horn sounded. Todoroki attacked immediately. A wave of ice, massive, fast, freezing the entire stage in an instant. A glacier erupted toward Izuku, 10 meters high, jagged and deadly. Izuku drew ebony and ivory. He fired, not wildly, but with purpose. Each bullet was superheated with demonic energy, melting through the ice before it could reach him. He shot a path through the glacier, like parting a curtain. Todoroki sent another wave. Larger, faster, from the ground, from the left, from above, ice closing in from 3 directions. Izuku sheathed his guns. Drew rebellion. Spun it once above his head, generating a spiral of demonic flame that evaporated the ice on contact. Steam erupted from the stage, shrouding everything in white mist. When it cleared, Izuku was standing 10 feet from Todoroki, rebellion on his shoulder. "You're holding back, kid," Izuku said. His voice carried across the silent stadium. "You think you can beat me with half your strength?" Todoroki's jaw tightened. "Shut up. You don't know anything about me." "I know you're scared." Izuku's voice wasn't taunting now. It was honest. "I know you've got another half of your power locked behind a door you refuse to open because someone you hate lives on the other side." He pointed rebellion at Todoroki. "But here's the thing. That fire isn't his. It's yours. It always was. And if you come at me with anything less than everything, you're not fighting me. You're fighting yourself." I said, "Shut up!" Todoroki launched his biggest ice attack yet, a wall of frost that filled the entire stage, rushing toward Izuku like an avalanche. Izuku didn't dodge, didn't cut. He drove Rebellion's tip into the ground and sent a pulse of demonic energy through the stage, red light cracking through the concrete, melting the ice from below, turning Todoroki's attack into a waterfall. "A false king needs to be dethroned," Izuku said, walking through the water. Give me some actual heat." Todoroki was breathing hard. His right side was overtaxed, frost covering his own body, his movements slowing. He was freezing himself, hurting himself with his own power. And somewhere in the stands, Endeavor watched. The flame hero stood at the railing, eyes wide, hands gripping the metal hard enough to dent it. Todoroki looked at Izuku, at the boy who walked through his everything like it was nothing, who demanded more. Not cruelly, not mockingly, but like a friend who refused to watch him self-destruct. Something cracked in Todoroki's chest. Not a bone, something older, deeper. His left side ignited. Flames erupted from his body, orange and gold and white hot, climbing into the sky like a bonfire finding oxygen for the first time. The ice on his right side evaporated. The cold vanished. For the first time in his life, Shoto Todoroki stood with both halves of himself burning. The stadium went berserk. The noise was deafening. Endeavor was screaming something, cheering maybe, or commanding, or crying. But it was lost in the roar. Todoroki looked at Izuku through the flames. His expression had changed. The rigidity was gone. The anger was gone. What remained was something raw and new and alive. "You asked for everything," Todoroki said. "Here it is." He charged. Fire and ice together, the left sizing, the right side freezing, both aimed at Izuku in a combined assault that warped the air itself. Izuku grinned, wider than he'd grinned all day. "Now we're talking!" He met the charge head-on. Rebellion glowed with demonic energy as he swung it in a spinning combo, a 3-hit sequence that generated its own wind pressure. The first slash parted the ice, the second redirected the fire. The third, a descending overhead strike, clashed directly with Todoroki's combined attack. The collision was incredible. Fire, ice, and demonic energy detonated together in a shockwave that cracked the stage, blew the referee's hair back, and rattled windows in the stadium. Midnight was thrown off her platform. Cementos barely raised walls in time to protect the front row audience. When the dust settled, Todoroki was on the ground, 5 meters outside the boundary line, conscious but unable to stand. His body steamed, equal parts ice mist and flame heat dissipating into the air. Izuku stood in the center of the ruined stage, rebellion on his shoulder. Not unmarked, his coat was singed at the edges, and frost clung to his right arm. But standing, winning. Midoriya wins. Present Mike's voice cracked with excitement. Midoriya Izuku is the champion of the UA Sports Festival. The stadium exploded with sound. 80,000 people screaming, stomping, chanting his name. Confetti cannons fired. The Jumbotron showed his face, grinning, wild-haired, coat billowing. But Izuku wasn't looking at the crowd. He was looking at Todoroki. He walked over, knelt beside him, offered his hand. "That fire," Izuku said. "That was yours, not his. Remember that." Todoroki looked up at him. His mismatched eyes, gray and turquoise, were wet, not from pain, from something he couldn't name yet. He took Izuku's hand. The crowd somehow got louder. After the festival, the world changed. Not just for Izuku, for everyone around him. The sports festival broadcast had been watched by 80 million people. Izuku Midoriya was no longer a rumor or a viral clip. He was a confirmed phenomenon. A first-year student at UA who had dominated every event, provoked Todoroki into unlocking his full power, and won the entire tournament without ever appearing to struggle. Pro-hero agencies flooded UA with internship offers. Izuku received 237 requests, a new record. Most were from top 10 agencies. Endeavor's agency wanted him. Todoroki scoffed at this. Best Genist wanted him. Edgeshot, Hawks, Mirko, everyone wanted the red coat on their roster. Izuku picked none of them. He chose Gran Torino, a retired hero nobody had heard of in decades. An old man in a cape with a jet quirk. All Might's former teacher. The reason was simple. Gran Torino had known Sparda. Or more accurately, Gran Torino had known that Sparda existed. He'd been young during the era when demons occasionally crossed into the human world. He'd seen things that didn't fit the quirk narrative, and he'd kept records. But that internship story is for another day. What matters now is what happened during that week. What happened in Hosu City? The call came at night. Izuku was at Gran Torino's apartment, lying on the old man's ratty couch, eating a slice of pizza he'd ordered an hour ago. His phone buzzed. A group message from Class 1A's chat. "Ida, I won't be responding for a while, taking care of something personal." That was it. Short. Clipped. Wrong. Izuku sat up. He knew what had happened to Ida's brother. Ingenium, the pro-hero, had been attacked by the hero killer, stabbed, crippled, left alive but broken. The news had hit Ida hard. The boy had been rigid, quiet, obsessive in the weeks that followed, and now he was taking care of something personal in Hosu City, where the hero killer had last been spotted. "Damn it, Ida," Izuku muttered. He stood up, grabbed his coat, and headed for the window. Gran Torino looked up from his recliner. "Where do you think you're going?" "A friend's about to do something stupid." Izuku pushed the window open. The night air of Hosu rushed in, along with the distant sound of sirens. Lots of sirens. "I'm gonna go make sure he doesn't die." "You're just a student." Izuku was already gone. Out the window, across the rooftop, moving through the city at speeds that turned the urban landscape into a blur. He followed the sirens, then he followed the screams. Then he followed the blood. The alley was narrow and stank of garbage and desperation. Ida was on the ground, paralyzed, bloodied. His helmet was cracked, his armor dented. Above him stood a figure draped in ragged cloth and dried blood, the hero killer Stain. A man with a nose like a blade, eyes like a zealot, and enough knives on his body to stock a kitchen. Beside Ida, a pro-hero, native, was also on the ground, also paralyzed. Stain's quirk, Blood Curdle. Lick someone's blood, freeze them in place. Stain raised his katana above Ida's neck. "False heroes deserve death," he said, voice like gravel wrapped in wire. "You came here for revenge, not justice. That makes you the same as the rest of them." The blade started to fall. A bullet ricocheted off the katana's edge, sparking off into the brick wall. The impact threw off Stain's aim. The blade bit into the concrete beside Ida's head instead of through it. Stain froze. Looked up, Izuku stood on the edge of the roof above the alley, one boot on the ledge, ivory smoking in his right hand. His red coat hung behind him, caught in the night wind. The amber glow of distant fires. Hosu was burning. Nomus rampaging through the streets, silhouetted him from behind. "You know," Izuku called down, twirling the gun on his finger, "you've got a really ugly face, buddy." Stain straightened, his eyes, intense, burning with conviction, focused on the newcomer. Another one. Another false hero running to their death. False hero? True hero? Whatever. Izuku dropped from the roof, 3 stories straight down. He landed in the alley like a cat, one knee, one hand on the ground, red coat settling. He stood up, flipping his hair out of his eyes. "I'm just here to keep my friend alive. You want him? Him? You go through me." Stain regarded him, evaluated. The hero killer was many things, insane, zealous, murderous, but he wasn't stupid. He knew strength when he saw it. "I recognize you," Stain said, "like the one from the sports festival, the demon child." His grip tightened on his katana. "You fight with style but no conviction. You're no true hero." Izuku drew ebony and ivory. "I'm the guy who's about to ruin your whole night. Does that count?" Stain moved. Fast. Faster than anyone Izuku had fought so far. The hero killer had survived battles against dozens of pro-heroes. He'd killed 17 of them. His speed, reflexes, and combat instincts were honed by years of killing. His katana came in low, a disemboweling slash aimed at Izuku's midsection. Izuku twisted, the blade passing a hair's width from his stomach. He countered with a shot from ebony, point blank, aimed at Stain's knee. Stain dodged. Not fully, the bullet grazed his thigh, drawing blood. But he was already inside Izuku's guard, a throwing knife materializing in his left hand aimed at Izuku's throat. Izuku caught the knife, barehanded. The blade sank into his palm and he didn't flinch. He squeezed, snapping the knife in half, and headbutted Stain in the face. The hero killer staggered back. Blood ran from his nose, both from the headbutt and from where his own knife had cut Izuku's palm. Blood on his blade, blood on his face. Stain's tongue shot out. Inhumanly long, his quirk's activation method. It licked the blood that had splattered on his upper lip. Izuku's blood. "Got you," Stain hissed. For a moment, Izuku felt it, a twinge. A flicker of paralysis trying to take hold. Blood curdle activated on ingestion of a target's blood. It should have frozen Izuku solid, but then Stain's expression changed. The hero killer's eyes went wide. His face went pale, his body convulsed. The katana fell from nerveless fingers, clanging on the alley floor. Stain dropped to his knees, doubling over, hands clutching his stomach, then he vomited, violently, explosively. His entire body spasmed as the demonic blood rejected his insides. Crimson energy crackled across his skin, where the blood had entered his system, burning him from the inside, corrupting everything it touched, turning his own quirk against him. Izuku looked down at the hero killer, writhing on the ground, and shrugged. Demon blood is an acquired taste, pal. Stain tried to stand. Failed, tried again. His body was rebelling, muscles spasming, nerves firing randomly. But his will was iron. He'd suffered worse, endured worse. He forced himself to one knee, grabbed his katana, and swung, a wild, desperate slash. No technique, no precision, just fury and willpower. Izuku swayed back, the blade missing his chin by inches. He drew ebony and ivory, aimed both barrels directly at Stain's chest, channeled his demonic energy into both guns, filling the chambers with power until the weapons glowed. Ebony burned black, ivory blazed white. The air between the gun barrels and Stain's chest warped with concentrated energy. Izuku's eyes were fully red. His grin was sharp. His voice carried across the alley like a gunshot. Jackpot! He fired. Both guns discharged simultaneously. Not bullets, beams, a swirling blast of black and white energy intertwined like a double helix screaming through the air. It hit Stain's katana first, vaporized the blade. Then it hit Stain himself. The hero killer was blasted off his feet, through the air, through the brick wall at the end of the alley, through the wall behind that, and the one behind that. 3 walls. 60 feet of brick and mortar turned to rubble. When the dust settled, Stain lay in the street beyond the alley, unconscious, his weapons destroyed, his body battered but alive. Izuku had pulled the shot, could have killed him, chose not to. Izuku spun both guns on his fingers, flipped them, and they vanished. He turned to Ida, who lay on the ground, paralyzed, tears running down his face. Next time, Izuku said, kneeling beside his friend, leave the monster hunting to the professionals. Midoriya, Ida's voice cracked. I'm sorry. I wanted. I know. Izuku's voice softened, not condescending, not angry, just honest. You wanted revenge, because he hurt your brother. I get it. But you came here alone, ready to die, and you would have if I'd been 5 minutes later. Ida squeezed his eyes shut. The tears came harder. Your brother wouldn't want this, Izuku said. He'd want you to keep going. To be better than the anger. You're Tenya Ida. Act like it. The paralysis faded as Stain's quirk lost its grip without his conscious focus. Ida sat up, wiped his eyes. You're right, he said. His voice was small but steady. You're right. Izuku offered his hand. Ida took it, stood. Behind them, Todoroki arrived, ice sliding into the alley, fire in his left hand. He'd received Izuku's location pin 30 seconds ago and came running. Midoriya, are you? He stopped, saw the rubble. The unconscious hero killer in the street. Izuku standing with his hands in his pockets like nothing had happened. Hey, Todoroki, Izuku said. You missed the party. Todoroki looked at the scene, at the 3 walls with holes in them, at the crater where Stain lay. What happened? Hero killer tried to lick my blood, Izuku shrugged. Bad idea. Before Todoroki could respond, the night split open, a shriek from above. One of the escaped Nomus, smaller than the USJ-1, winged savage, dove from the sky toward the group. Its talons extended, aiming for Ida. Todoroki moved first, a wall of ice erupting upward to intercept. But the Nomu crashed through it, barely slowed. It never reached them. Izuku was already there. One hand. He caught the Nomu by the face mid-dive, fingers sinking into its skull. The creature's momentum stopped dead. Its wings flapped uselessly. Izuku squeezed. The Nomu went limp. He dropped it like a piece of garbage and turned back to his friends. We should move. The city's on fire and I can hear more of those things. They moved. Through the burning streets of Hosu, the 3 students made their way toward the pro-heroes who were gathering to push back the Nomu swarm. Along the way, Izuku shot down 2 more flying Nomus with ebony and ivory. Casual, one-handed, barely looking. By the time they reached the police perimeter, the worst was over. The pro-heroes had subdued the remaining threats. Stain was recovered from the rubble, alive, bound, arrested. The police chief, a dog-headed man named Tsuragami, approached the students. You 3 engaged the hero killer without authorization. That is a violation of... We saved 2 lives, Izuku interrupted. His voice wasn't hostile, but it wasn't submissive either. Ida and Native would be dead right now. I don't care about authorization when people are bleeding out. Tsuragami paused, studied Izuku, then sighed. Officially, this incident will be credited to Endeavor, who is in the area. A pause. Unofficially, good work. Izuku nodded. Cool. Where's the nearest pizza place? Tsuragami blinked, clearly not used to teenagers asking for pizza recommendations after subduing S-rank criminals. But before he could answer, Endeavor's massive frame cut through the crowd. The flame hero said nothing to Izuku directly. He stared, took in the boy, the red coat, the easy posture, the blood on his knuckles that wasn't his own. Then Endeavor looked at Todoroki, at the burns and frost still clinging to his son's body, at the fire residue on his left arm. "You used it," Endeavor said to Todoroki. Not a question. Todoroki said nothing. He turned his back on his father and walked toward the ambulance where Native was being loaded. Izuku watched the exchange, filed it away. Then he threw an arm around Ida's shoulder. "Come on, big man. Let's get you patched up. And then food. I'm starving." Ida looked at him, exhausted, ashamed, grateful. "Midoriya, thank you, truly. Buy me dinner, and we're even." They returned to UA 2 days later. The internship week ended with Hosu still smoldering in the news. The hero killer's arrest dominated every headline, but beneath the surface, something else was brewing. Stain's ideology, his declaration that only true heroes deserve to live, had spread like a virus through the villain underground. Recruitment for the League of Villains tripled overnight, but Izuku didn't know that yet. He walked back into Class 1A on Monday morning with a bag of convenience store donuts and a grin. "Honey, I'm home!" The class erupted. People swarmed him. Kirishima, Kaminari, Mina, Sero, all talking over each other, asking about Hosu, about the hero killer, about the Nomus. Izuku handed out donuts and deflected questions with jokes, but his eyes drifted, as they sometimes did, across the room. Momo Yaoyorozu sat at her desk near the window. She wasn't swarming him like the others. She was watching. Her chin rested on her interlaced fingers, dark eyes tracking him with an intensity that most people reserved for solving complex equations. She'd been watching him since the sports festival, since the cavalry battle, when she'd led her own team against his and been the only person to come close to stealing his headband. Not because of raw power, because of intelligence. She'd created a net of gadgets and traps so intricate that Izuku had actually had to pay attention for 30 seconds. He'd winked at her afterward. She'd gone red and looked away. Now, in the classroom, their eyes met. Izuku raised a donut in her direction, a silent offering. Momo raised one eyebrow. Then she stood, walked over, and took it from his hand. Their fingers brushed. "Thank you," she said. Composed, poised. But there was a faint warmth beneath the formality. "Anytime, gorgeous." She didn't blush this time. She held his gaze. "You're going to tell me what actually happened in Hosu." "Am I?" "Yes. Over tea, after class." It wasn't a question. Izuku's grin shifted, softened at the edges. This one was different. Not the sharp, combat-ready smirk, not the cocky performer's smile. Something warmer. "It's a date." Now she blushed. They met that afternoon on the rooftop. Momo had brought an actual tea set, created it from her body, her creation quirk, transforming lipids into porcelain and dried leaves. She poured with the precision of someone trained in ceremony since childhood. Izuku sat on the ledge, legs dangling over the edge, and told her about Hosu. The truth. Not the sanitized version. Not the bravado. The real fight. How fast Stain was, how his blood had poisoned the hero killer, how he'd blown the man through 3 walls. Momo listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. "You could have killed him," she said. "Yeah. You chose not to. He's a murderer, but he's also a person with an ideology. Killing him makes him a martyr. Letting the system take him makes him a prisoner." Izuku sipped his tea. "Besides, I save the killing for things that aren't human." Momo studied his profile against the fading sun, the sharp jaw, the easy confidence, the way he spoke about violence like it was a tool, available but chosen with purpose. "You're more thoughtful than you let people believe," she said. "Don't tell anyone. Ruins my reputation." She smiled, a real one, unguarded. Something between them shifted, not dramatically, not with fireworks or confessions, just the quiet click of 2 people recognizing something in each other that no one else had seen. They stayed on that rooftop until the sun went down, talking about everything, about her family's expectations, the pressure of being a Yaoyorozu, of being wealthy and brilliant and still never feeling enough, about his father, about what it meant to carry power that the world couldn't classify. "You don't fit in their boxes," Momo said. "Neither do you," Izuku replied. She looked at him. He looked at her. The space between them was small. Izuku reached over and tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear. His touch was gentle, impossibly so for hands that had shattered steel and broken monsters. "You're gonna change the world, Yaoyorozu," he said, "and I want to be around to see it." Her heart hammered. She didn't look away. "Momo? Call me Momo." He smiled. That warm one, the real one. Momo. The weeks that followed were strange and good. School continued, training continued, but something new had entered Izuku's orbit. A gravitational pull he hadn't expected. Momo Yaoyorozu was brilliant. Not just smart, brilliant. She analyzed combat the way composers analyze symphonies. She could watch Izuku fight once and identify patterns he hadn't noticed himself. She created strategies, gadgets, support items designed specifically to complement his style. Not because he needed them, he didn't, but because she wanted to contribute. To stand beside him, not behind him, and Izuku let her, which was new. He wasn't used to letting people in. The swagger, the humor, the unshakable confidence, it was real, but it was also a wall. Underneath it was a boy who'd been alone with his secret for 5 years, who'd trained in empty lots at midnight because no one could know what he was, who'd watched other kids get praised for their quirks while he was labeled quirkless and forgotten. Momo saw past the wall, not by tearing it down, by sitting next to it patiently until Izuku opened the door himself. They studied together, trained together, ate lunch together on the rooftop. She brought tea, he brought pizza. It worked. One evening, after a particularly grueling combat simulation, Momo found Izuku in the gym alone. He was punching a reinforced training bag, no demonic energy, no weapons, just fists, over and over. "You're upset," she said from the doorway. "Nah." Another punch, the bag dented. "You're lying." He stopped, didn't turn around. His knuckles were raw, human raw. He'd been suppressing his healing factor. "Today's exercise," he said. "Aizawa paired me against 4 students at once. I beat all of them in 12 seconds. He looked at his hands. "They weren't even close, Momo. Not one of them. I couldn't even pretend it was a fight." "And that bothers you? It makes me alone." He said it quietly, like a confession. "Everyone looks at me and sees something impossible, a monster, a weapon, something to be amazed by or afraid of." He turned to face her. His eyes were green and honest and very young. "Sometimes I just want to be a guy, you know?" Momo crossed the gym, stood in front of him, close enough to touch. "You are a guy," she said. "A ridiculous, cocky, pizza-obsessed guy who wears a red coat everywhere and names his attacks." She reached up and placed both hands on his cheeks. His skin was warm, always warm. "And I don't find you impossible, I find you infuriating." She smiled. "There's a difference," Izuku laughed. Low and genuine, he placed his hands over hers. "You're kinda amazing, you know that?" "I'm aware." He leaned down. She rose on her toes. The kiss was soft, brief, perfect. When they pulled apart, Momo's face was crimson, but her smile was radiant. "About time," she murmured. "Hey, I was working up to it. You cut a building-sized robot in half on your first day, but you needed a month to kiss me? Robots don't make me nervous." She laughed. The sound filled the empty gym like sunlight. They walked back to the dorms together, shoulders touching. Izuku felt something loosen in his chest that he hadn't known was tight, like he'd been holding his breath for years and only just exhaled. Momo fit, not like a puzzle piece, like a counterweight. She grounded him without limiting him, challenged him without threatening him, saw him without flinching. For the first time since he was 10 years old, Izuku Midoriya felt like he belonged somewhere. 2 months after Hosu, Aizawa called the class to attention with unusual gravity. "Training camp," he said. "The Pussycats Mountain facility, 1 week. Full immersion. You'll be pushing your quirks past their current limits." His eyes swept the room. "All of you." His gaze lingered on Izuku for a fraction longer than the others. The bus ride took 6 hours. Izuku sat in the back with Momo, her head on his shoulder while she read a reference book on material science. Kirishima and Kaminari kept trying to throw snacks at his head. He caught every one without looking. They arrived at the mountain facility. Dense forest. Clean air. The kind of isolation that made cell service a luxury. The Pussycats, a team of 4 pro heroes who specialized in wilderness rescue, greeted them at the summit. Pixie Bob pointed at the forest below. "Your training starts now. The lodge is at the bottom. Get there by yourselves. Through the beast's forest." She slammed her paws into the ground. The earth rumbled. Massive earthen beasts rose from the forest below, animated golems of rock and soil, each one the size of a bus. The students were shoved off the cliff. Class 1A tumbled, screamed, and scrambled down the mountainside into the forest. Earthen beasts swarmed them. Most students grouped up, combining quirks to fight through. Izuku landed on the first golem's head, balanced effortlessly, and rode it like a bull. Yeehaw! He drew Ebony and shattered 3 more golems with rapid fire while still surfing the first one. Then he kicked off, flipped through the air, and landed beside Momo. Need a hand? I'm fine. She was already creating a massive cannon from her arm. She fired it, a concentrated blast that turned 2 golems to rubble. But you can watch if you'd like, he grinned. My girlfriend's a badass. She smiled without stopping her assault. Flattery won't make me share my tea. They reached the lodge in 45 minutes. Most of the class straggled in over the next 3 hours. Bakugo was last, covered in dirt, bleeding from scrapes, but having single-handedly destroyed more golems than any other individual student, he walked past Izuku without a word, but his eyes burned with something new. Not hatred. Progress. The first 3 days of camp were grueling. Each student had a personalized training regimen designed to push their abilities past current limits. Todoroki worked on simultaneous ice and fire output. Bakugo trained his AP shot to pinpoint accuracy. Kirishima hardened his body until hammers broke against him. Izuku's training was different. Aizawa pulled him aside on the first morning. Your power isn't a quirk. I can't train it like one. So instead, he handed Izuku a folder. You're going to fight me every day for 4 hours. Izuku raised an eyebrow. You want me to fight you? I want you to learn restraint. Aizawa's tired eyes were serious. You're strong enough to kill anyone in this camp with one swing? That's not in question. What's in question is whether you can control your output well enough to fight beside allies without atomizing them. It was a fair point. Izuku's power was overwhelming, but he'd been fighting alone or against enemies. He'd never had to calibrate his output for teamwork. Plus, Aizawa added, I want to know your limits, the real ones, not the show you put on for the class. So they fought, every morning 5 a.m. in a clearing half a mile from the lodge. Aizawa couldn't erase Izuku's abilities. They weren't quirk-based. But the underground hero was one of the most skilled close combat fighters in Japan. His capture weapon, his reflexes, his ability to read movement patterns, they gave Izuku something he rarely got, a challenge that wasn't about power. By the second day, Izuku was genuinely impressed. Aizawa couldn't hurt him, but the man could bind him, redirect him, create openings that would have been lethal against a normal opponent. The teacher fought like a ghost, never where you expected, always 3 steps ahead in planning. You're good, Izuku admitted, untangling himself from the capture weapon for the 14th time. I'm experienced, Aizawa corrected. You hit harder than anything I've ever faced. But you telegraph your big moves. You rely on speed and power to cover tactical gaps against someone who can't be overwhelmed by force. Someone smarter, more patient. You have holes. Izuku absorbed that, turned it over in his mind. So you're saying I need to fight smarter, not harder. I'm saying that being the strongest thing in the room means nothing if someone outthinks you. Aizawa rewound his capture weapon. Again. They went again and again. And by the end of day 3, Izuku was fighting differently. Faster in his decision-making, more adaptive, less reliant on sheer devastation as an answer to every problem. He still devastated things, but now he chose when to devastate them. Night 3. The forest was quiet. The students slept in the lodge after another exhausting day. Izuku sat on the porch, Momo beside him, her head on his shoulder. The stars above were brilliant. No light pollution this far from the city. You're thinking loud, Momo murmured. Something feels wrong. She looked up at him. What do you mean? He didn't answer immediately. His demonic senses, heightened beyond human parameters, were prickling. Something in the air, a wrongness, like the static before a lightning strike. I don't know yet, he said, but keep your guard up tomorrow. Night 4 changed everything. Izuku woke at 2 a.m., not because of a sound, because of a smell, sulfur, smoke, and something else, the acrid stench of compressed gas. He was out of bed and moving before his conscious mind fully engaged. Coat on, boots on, window open, blue flames. The forest was burning. Not natural fire, blue flames impossibly hot, spreading unnaturally fast through the dense trees. And in the firelight, shadows moved, not the earthen beasts from training, people, villains. Izuku was on the ground in 3 seconds. The porch, the clearing. He could see them now, figures emerging from the tree line. 10, 15. More. And at the center of the burning forest, walking through his own flames untouched, a figure in a black coat, stitched skin, piercings, eyes that reflected nothing. Dabi, behind the lodge. Izuku heard it. A crash. Screams. Some of the students were already under attack. Everyone up! Izuku's voice boomed across the clearing, amplified by demonic energy, loud enough to rattle windows. We're under attack! Move! Doors burst open. Students poured out in various states of readiness. Aizawa appeared on the roof in seconds, capture weapon deployed, already scanning. Midoriya. I know. Multiple hostiles. Blue fire user in the east, more coming from the south. Izuku drew rebellion. The blade materialized with a flash of crimson. I'm going hunting. Wait. We need a coordinated... Izuku was already gone. Into the burning forest. Toward the largest concentration of villains, he found the first group 30 seconds in. 6 villains. Low-tier thugs with combat quirks, a rock fist, a blade arm, a guy who could spit acid. They were advancing toward the lodge, intent on reaching the students. Izuku appeared in front of them, rebellion on his shoulder, eyes glowing red in the firelight. Wrong turn, boys. The one with rock fists charged. Brave. Stupid. Izuku swung rebellion one-handed. The blade caught the villain across the chest and sent him airborne, 50 meters back through the trees, crashing through trunks like a pinball. He hit the ground and didn't get up. The blade arm lunged. Izuku sidestepped, grabbed the man's extended arm, and snapped it at the elbow. The sound was awful. The villain screamed. Izuku kicked him into his allies, bowling 3 of them over. The acid spitter opened his mouth. A stream of corrosive fluid shot toward Izuku's face. Izuku tilted his head. The acid missed by a centimeter. He raised ivory, fired once. The bullet caught the villain between the eyes, not penetrating, but hitting with enough force to render him unconscious before his body finished falling. 6 villains. 8 seconds. None of them dead, but none of them getting up either. Izuku kept moving. The forest burned around him. Blue flames ate the trees. In the distance, he could hear combat, his classmates engaging other villains. Todoroki's ice, Bakugo's explosions, Ida's engines. Good, they could handle the small fry. Izuku was after bigger game. He found Dabi in a clearing. The scarred man stood among blue flames like they were old friends. His coat was open, his stitched skin visible, his eyes fixed on Izuku with the bored expression of someone who'd been waiting. So you're the one, Dabi said. The demon kid, Shigaraki's new obsession. Popular guy, aren't I? Izuku twirled rebellion. You're with the League? For now. Dabi raised a hand. Blue fire gathered in his palm, hot enough to melt steel at 20 paces. I was told to test you. See if the rumors are real. The rumors are real, Izuku said. The question is whether you survived the demonstration. Dabi fired, a column of blue flame, 2,000 degrees, screaming toward Izuku like a dragon's breath. Izuku didn't dodge. He drove rebellion into the ground and released a pulse of demonic energy, a dome of red force that met the blue fire and held. The flames parted around him like water around a boulder. Trees behind Dabi exploded from the redirected heat. The ground fused to glass. Ha, Dabi said. Not bad. Izuku pulled rebellion from the ground and shot forward. Trickster. He appeared directly in front of Dabi, close enough to see the individual stitches in his skin, and swung. Dabi ducked. Fast. Faster than he looked. Blue fire erupted from his hand at point-blank range, aimed at Izuku's face. It hit, engulfed his head, 2,000 degrees of concentrated flame covering every inch of his skull. Izuku kept swinging. The blade caught Dabi in the side. Not a killing blow. Not deep enough for that. But the impact launched the villain sideways through the air. He hit a tree, cracked it in half, and landed hard. Izuku stood in the clearing, his hair slightly singed, face reddened from the heat, already healing. He wiped a smear of soot from his cheek. You'll need hotter fire than that, Patchwork. Dabi stood up, wobbled. The slash on his side was bleeding, not badly, but enough. He looked at it, then at Izuku. Then he smiled. Fun. He raised both hands. Blue fire erupted in every direction, not aimed at Izuku, but at the forest, spreading, consuming, turning the entire mountainside into an inferno. But I'm not here to beat you. I'm here to keep you busy. Izuku's eyes narrowed. Keep him busy. While the other villains, his head snapped toward the lodge, toward the sound of combat, toward the scream that cut through the night, Momo's scream. Izuku moved. Trickster dash. Maximum speed. The world blurred. Trees became streaks of light. He crossed half a kilometer in 2 heartbeats. He burst out of the forest into the clearing behind the lodge and found chaos. A massive villain, muscular, bloated, rippling with quirk-enhanced flesh, had cornered 3 students against the building. Tokoyami was down. Shuji was bleeding, shielding Tokoyami's body. And Momo was fighting. She'd created a staff from her arm and was striking at the villain's legs, keeping him at distance, buying time. Her uniform was torn. Blood ran from a cut on her forehead, but her expression was pure focus. The villain, muscular, Izuku's instinct named him, laughed. His arm swelled with muscle fibers until it was 3 times its normal size. He swung. The blow hit Momo's staff, shattered it. The force sent her tumbling across the ground, rolling until she hit the lodge wall. She slumped, didn't get up. Izuku saw red, not the red of his eyes changing color, the red of pure, absolute volcanic fury. Something in his chest that he kept under lock and key every waking moment. The demon blood, the inheritance of Sparda, the violence that was woven into his DNA, surged. He didn't think, didn't plan, didn't calculate. He hit muscular like a freight train. No weapon, no style. Just his fist, wreathed in so much demonic energy that the air around it burned black and red, crashing into the villain's face with enough force to create a shockwave that shattered every window on the lodge. Muscular flew, not like a human body should, like a missile. He hit the tree line and kept going, through trees, through earth, through rock. A trench carved itself into the mountainside as the villain's body broke through everything in its path. Izuku didn't wait for him to stop. He was already there, Trickster closing the gap faster than Muscular could travel. He appeared above the villain's tumbling body, grabbed him by the ankle and slammed him into the ground. The impact cratered the earth 10 meters in every direction. Muscular tried to stand. His muscle fibers regenerated, swelling, thickening, his quirk pumping fresh armor onto his frame. Izuku didn't care. You touched her. His voice wasn't his own, it was layered. Doubled, the demon beneath the boy speaking through him. He grabbed Muscular by the throat, lifted him. The villain was 300 pounds of enhanced muscle. Izuku held him one-handed like a doll. That was a mistake. He squeezed. Muscular's eyes bulged. His muscle fibers tried to reinforce his neck, tried to resist the grip, but demonic strength wasn't physical force alone. It was spiritual. Absolute. The kind of power that made matter obey. Izuku's grip tightened. The villain's windpipe crushed, his vertebrae splintered. His muscle fibers, for all their defensive power, couldn't protect against something that existed outside the laws of biology. Muscular's body went limp. Izuku released him. The corpse dropped to the earth with a heavy thud. He stared at it for 1 second. 2. His eyes were fully red, no green anywhere. His breathing was ragged. The demonic energy around him crackled and spiked, unstable, reactive to his fury. Then he heard footsteps behind him. Izuku, Momo's voice. Shaky, pained, but alive. He turned. She was limping toward him, one arm clutching her ribs, blood still on her forehead, but upright, conscious, alive. The red in his eyes flickered, faded. Green bled back in. He was beside her in a heartbeat. Arms around her. Careful, so careful, aware of his strength, aware of how fragile human bodies were. "I'm okay," she said against his chest. "I'm okay, I promise." "He hit you." His voice was raw. And you handled it." She pulled back just enough to look up at him. Her eyes were steady. "I'm here. I'm alive." Izuku pressed his forehead to hers, closed his eyes, drew a breath that shook. "If I'd been slower, you weren't." They stood there for a moment. The forest burned around them. The sounds of combat continued in the distance. But in that moment, nothing else existed. Then Izuku straightened. His expression hardened. The fear drained away, replaced by something colder, more focused. "How many more villains?" he asked. "I don't know, Aizawa and the Pussycats are engaging them on the other side." She created a small radio from her palm. "I've been trying to coordinate. Get to the lodge, get the injured inside, barricade." He kissed her forehead, brief, firm. "I'm going to end this." He turned back toward the forest, drew rebellion. The blade pulsed with crimson energy, responding to his fury. Momo grabbed his wrist. "Izuku, be careful." He looked at her over his shoulder, smiled, sharp and dangerous and alive. "Careful's boring, but I'll come back. Always." He tore through the forest like a force of nature. Every villain he found, he dismantled. No mercy. No games. The playful fighter from the entrance exam, the one who surfed on robots and bowled them over like pins, was gone. In his place was something that moved with lethal intent, a villain with a chainsaw quirk. Izuku cut through the chainsaw and the man's arm holding it in one swing. The villain screamed. Bled. Collapsed, a woman who could extend her nails into razor wires. She got close enough to wrap one wire around Izuku's neck. He grabbed the wire, yanked her toward him, and drove his knee into her face with enough force to shatter bone. She crumpled. A pair who worked in tandem, one creating barriers, one firing compressed air blasts. Izuku drew both guns, 4 shots, one for each knee. They fell screaming. Some of them died. The ones who got between him and Momo, the ones who'd hurt his classmates, the ones who looked at him and didn't flinch. He found Spinner, a lizard-looking villain with a massive sword, guarding a path deeper into the forest. The villain saw Izuku coming and raised his weapon. "I'm a follower of Stain. I fight for true hero." Izuku fired Ebony once. The bullet hit Spinner's sword and shattered it into pieces. A second bullet hit the villain's shoulder. A third hit his knee. Spinner collapsed in a heap of green scales and pain. "Stain lost," Izuku said, not stopping. "Pick better role models." He found the core of the operation 7 minutes in. A clearing. A gas-masked villain, Mustard, surrounded by a toxic purple cloud. The boy was young, maybe 15. He had a pistol and a superiority complex. "You can't get through my gas," Mustard shouted. "One breath and you'll..." Izuku held his breath and walked through the gas like it was morning fog. The toxic cloud swirled around him, touching his skin, trying to penetrate. His demonic physiology burned it off like dew on hot pavement. He reached Mustard. The boy fired his pistol, real bullets, real gun. 3 shots. Izuku caught them. Out of the air, between his fingers, 1, 2, 3. He dropped the bullets and flicked Mustard in the forehead. The boy's gas mask cracked. His eyes rolled back. He fell. "Kids these days," Izuku muttered. The gas dispersed without Mustard's concentration holding it. Clear air returned to the forest. Then Izuku heard it. A sound that didn't belong. A low subsonic hum. Not a quirk. Not a machine, something else. He followed it deeper into the forest, past the last burning tree, past the edge of the training camp's territory, into untouched woods where the moonlight barely reached the forest floor. He found it in a cave, a device, alien, organic, a pulsing sphere of dark energy, contained in a cage of twisted metal. It hummed with power that made Izuku's blood respond, his demonic heritage resonating with whatever the sphere was generating. "What the hell?" he murmured. He reached toward it, stopped. His instincts screamed at him, not danger exactly, recognition, like seeing a door you'd forgotten existed, a voice from behind him. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Izuku spun, rebellion in his hand, ready. A man stood at the cave entrance, unremarkable. Average height, average build, wearing a plain suit. But his face was wrong. Features that seemed to shift when you weren't looking directly at them. Eyes that held no light. "Who are you?" Izuku demanded. The man smiled. It was the emptiest expression Izuku had ever seen. "I'm the one who's been waiting for you, Son of Sparda." The man gestured to the device. "That is a Hellgate fragment. A piece of the seal your father created 2,000 years ago. It's been weakening, deteriorating." His smile widened. "Soon, the gates will fail entirely, and when they do..." Izuku fired Ivory. No warning, no conversation. The bullet screamed toward the man's head. The man caught it, between 2 fingers, without looking. "Rude," he said, "but I respect the instinct." He crushed the bullet to dust. "I am not your enemy tonight, Izuku. I'm a messenger. My master wishes you to know. The gates are opening. The demon world is bleeding through. And you," he pointed, "are the only thing standing between this world and extinction." "Your master," Izuku said. His grip on rebellion tightened. "Who?" "You'll know him when you meet him. He wore your father's face once, before Sparda betrayed our kind." The man stepped backward into shadow, literally into it, his body dissolving into darkness. "Prepare yourself, half-breed. The world is about to remember what demons are." He vanished. Gone. No scent, no trace. Izuku stood alone in the cave. The Hellgate fragment pulsed beside him. His blood sang in response. Resonant, ancient, hungry. He looked at the sphere, reached out, touched it. Power flooded into him. Raw, unfiltered demonic energy, the kind that existed in the space between worlds. It screamed through his veins, expanded his capacity, deepened his wells of strength. Not a transformation, an upgrade, like finding a new floor in a building he thought he'd already explored. When he pulled his hand away, the sphere was dark, inert, drained. Izuku flexed his hands. He felt stronger. Not marginally, substantially. His base power had just increased by at least 30%. He filed that away, took a breath, and headed back toward camp. Dawn came. The villains were gone, fled, or broken. Dabi had vanished during the chaos. No students were dead, some injured. Tokoyami had a concussion. Shuji's arm was mangled. Several others had burns, cuts, bruises. And one villain, muscular, was dead in a trench on the mountainside, killed by Izuku Midoriya. The pro-heroes arrived an hour after dawn. Police, emergency services, and with them, questions. Izuku sat on the lodge steps, Momo beside him with her head on his shoulder, and answered them honestly. He was going to kill 3 students. I stopped him. You killed him, the officer clarified. Yes. No remorse, no hesitation, no wavering, no wavering. The officer looked uncomfortable, wrote in his notebook, looked at his superior. His superior looked at the UA faculty. Everyone looked at everyone else. In the end, it was ruled justifiable. Self-defense of others in a lethal threat scenario. A villain with a known body count, multiple warrants, and documented lethal intent. No charges, but the news hit different. UA student kills villain during training camp attack. The media storm was nuclear. Talking heads debated for days. Was it justified? Was it excessive? Was a 15-year-old capable of making that decision? Should he be expelled? Arrested? Celebrated? The internet, as always, was divided. Some praised him. He saved 3 lives. Some condemned him. Heroes don't kill. Some were afraid. What is he? Izuku watched none of it. He went back to school, went to class, trained, kissed his girlfriend on the rooftop, ate pizza, lived, but something had shifted. The playfulness was still there, the jokes, the swagger, the red coat, but beneath it, a new hardness. A line he'd crossed and would cross again without hesitation. The world wanted to call him a hero. Fine. He'd be their hero. But he wouldn't be their puppet. And he wouldn't let anyone he loved die just to preserve a reputation. 3 weeks after the training camp, All Might called Izuku to his office. The emaciated man looked worse than usual, thinner, more drawn. His sunken eyes held a weight that hadn't been there before. Something's coming, All Might said without preamble. I can feel it. The villain activity isn't random, it's coordinated. Shigaraki, the League, the Nomus, they're being directed. By who? All Might was silent for a long moment. Then, his name is All for One. He is the most powerful villain in history. He has existed for over 200 years, sustained by a quirk that allows him to steal and stockpile other people's powers. He is the reason One for All exists, the reason I exist. Izuku leaned forward, and he's making a move. He's already moved, the USJ, the training camp. These weren't random attacks. They were tests, probes. All Might's hands trembled. He's testing our defenses, finding our weaknesses. Then stop letting him probe, Izuku said simply. Hit back. All Might shook his head. It's not that simple. He's hidden, protected, surrounded by... Then find him. Something in Izuku's voice made All Might pause. The boy wasn't suggesting. He was stating. Young Midoriya. I killed a man 3 weeks ago, Izuku said. His voice was even. I crushed his throat because he was going to kill people I care about. I'd do it again without thinking twice. This All for One. He's throwing soldiers at us and sitting in the shadows. Eventually, one of those soldiers is going to get through. Someone's going to die. He leaned forward. I don't wait for that. You shouldn't either. All Might studied him. The boy who sat before him was not the same one who'd eaten pizza at the school gates 8 months ago. He was harder, sharper, more dangerous, but his eyes were the same, green and burning and alive. You remind me of him, All Might said softly. Your father, the way he spoke about protecting the world, like it was already decided. It is decided, Izuku said. Tell me where to find All for One. I'll handle it. You can't. Not yet. All Might raised a hand before Izuku could argue. I'm not doubting your strength. I'm telling you, All for One has had 2 centuries to accumulate quirks. He has dozens, maybe hundreds, each one at maximum power. He combines them in ways that defy logic. I've fought him twice and barely survived both times. He gestured to his emaciated form. This is what fighting him costs. Izuku absorbed that. His jaw was tight. Then we get stronger, he said. Both of us. And when he shows his face, we end it. All Might extended his hand. Together? Izuku took it. Together. The next month was preparation. All Might trained Izuku in tactics. Not combat, Izuku didn't need combat training from anyone on Earth. Tactics, strategy, how to fight an enemy with dozens of quirks, how to anticipate power combinations, how to exploit the one weakness every quirk stockpiler has, the need to switch between abilities, the half-second of vulnerability between activations. Meanwhile, Izuku trained himself, harder than ever. He pushed his devil trigger duration from seconds to minutes. He developed new techniques, combinations of his styles that created hybrid approaches. Trickster Swordmaster for aerial combat, Royal Guard Gunslinger for devastating counterattacks, and he found more Hellgate fragments. 3 of them. Hidden across Japan, one in a cave in Hokkaido, one beneath a shrine in Kyoto, one in the ruins of an abandoned government facility on the coast. Each one pulsed with the same resonant energy. Each one responded to his blood. Each one he absorbed. Each one made him stronger. By the time it all came to a head, Izuku Midoriya had grown in ways that defied measurement. His base power had nearly doubled. His devil trigger was stable for 5 full minutes. His control, thanks to Aizawa's training, was precise enough to fight in a crowded room without hurting a single civilian. He was ready. The question was whether the world was ready for what was coming. It came on a Thursday evening. Camino Ward, the League of Villains' hidden base, discovered through weeks of intelligence work by the police and pro-hero task force. A raid was planned. Precise. Multi-pronged. Top heroes on every entrance. Izuku wasn't supposed to be there. The raid was strictly professional, no students allowed. All Might had told him to stay at the school. Izuku came anyway. He arrived on a rooftop overlooking the warehouse district just as the operation began. Below, pro-heroes breached from 4 directions. Tiger, Gang Orca, Edge Shot, Best Genist, and All Might, in his muscle form, burning through his remaining time, leading the charge. For a moment, it went well. Villains fell. The League's hideout was breached. Shigaraki and his lieutenants were cornered. Then the building exploded, not from the inside, from above. A shockwave of pure force descended from the sky like the hand of a god. The warehouse didn't collapse. It was erased, pulverized into dust. Heroes and villains alike were scattered like leaves. And from the dust cloud rose a figure, all for one. He was tall, broad-shouldered. His face was destroyed, a mass of scar tissue where features should be, the result of his first fight with All Might decades ago. He wore a fine suit incongruous with the devastation around him. Life support equipment connected to his skull, feeding him air, data, power. He stood in the crater where the building had been. Around him, pro-heroes lay broken, Best Genist down, pinned by fiber that had been turned against him. Tiger, thrown through a wall. Gang Orca, unconscious in rubble. All Might stood across from him, both hands raised. Blood running from his mouth where his muscle form was already failing. All for one, All Might said. All Might, the villain replied. His voice was smooth, cultured, terrifyingly polite. It's been too long. You look terrible. They clashed. The impact shattered windows for 3 city blocks. A fist met a fist, one for all against all for one. The shockwave alone leveled the surrounding buildings. Concrete became powder. Steel became shrapnel. From the rooftop, Izuku watched. His hands were fists. His body was taut. Every instinct screamed at him to move, to join the fight, to help, to destroy. But All Might had said, All Might took a hit. A combination quirk, wind pressure and kinetic amplification, caught the hero in the chest. All Might's muscle form flickered. His body shrank, grew, shrank again. Blood sprayed from his mouth. He was losing. Izuku moved. He hit Camino Ward like a meteor. Red coat, red eyes, rebellion in hand. The impact of his landing created its own crater. All for One and All Might both froze mid-clash. All Might because he recognized the boy and the horror of seeing his student on this battlefield. All for One because... Ah! The villain's ruined face turned toward Izuku. His voice held something it hadn't before. Genuine interest. The Son of Sparda. I wondered when you'd appear. You know my father? Izuku's voice was hard. Know him? I fought him. All for One stepped away from All Might. His full attention shifted to Izuku. 200 years ago, when demons still crossed freely into this world. Your father sealed the gates and retired to play human. I found him boring. But you, he gestured. You are interesting. Half demon, half human. A hybrid, unprecedented. I'm flattered, Izuku said. He raised rebellion, pointed at All for One. Now die. He charged. All for One raised a hand. 6 quirks activated simultaneously: a barrier, a force push, an air cannon, a kinetic reflection, a spatial distortion, and something that made the air itself toxic. Izuku cut through all of it. One swing. Rebellion, infused with the full weight of his accumulated demonic power, cleaved through the barrier like it was paper. The force push bounced off his body. The air cannon redirected around his aura. The kinetic reflection shattered against demonic energy that existed outside physical law. The spatial distortion warped the space between them, and Izuku's trickster dash ignored spatial distortion entirely. Moving through dimensions rather than through space, he appeared in front of All for One, sword raised. Ready to bisect the most powerful villain in history, All for One smiled, a new quirk activated. One Izuku hadn't seen, couldn't predict. The villain's body became intangible, phasing through Rebellion's blade like smoke. The sword passed harmlessly through empty air, then All for One's hand, solid again, closed around Izuku's throat. The grip was immense, backed by a strength-enhancing quirk and 2 centuries of accumulated power. It lifted Izuku off the ground and slammed him into the earth hard enough to crater it. "You are strong," All for One said, holding Izuku down. "Stronger than I expected, but you are young, undisciplined. You charge at a wall, thinking you can break it." His grip tightened. "I have broken walls you can't imagine." Izuku's hands gripped All for One's wrist. Demonic energy surged through his fingers, burning the villain's skin, making All for One hiss with pain but not release. "You talk too much," Izuku choked out. He brought both legs up, knees to his chest, and kicked. Both boots hit All for One's chest. The demonic energy behind the kick was enough to level a building. It broke the villain's grip and sent him skidding backward, arms up to guard, suit shredding from the force. Izuku flipped to his feet, blood in his mouth, throat bruised, already healing, eyes burning red. "All Might," he said without looking. "Get up. We're doing this together." Behind him, All Might pushed himself to standing. Blood poured from his mouth. His form flickered between muscle and skeletal. He was fading, running on fumes. But he stood. "Young Midoriya, save the speech. Hit him when I tell you. Everything you've got, everything that's left." All Might stared at the boy's back, at the red coat, the raised sword, the absolute, unwavering certainty. Then he gathered everything he had, every drop of One for All's remaining embers. It wouldn't last. After this, his power would be gone forever. "Ready," All Might said. Izuku locked eyes with All for One across the destroyed street. "Round 2, he said. He attacked again. But differently this time, not a bull rush, not a single overwhelming strike. He fought the way Aizawa had taught him, adaptively. Reading All for One's responses, noting which quirks he activated, timing the switches. Rebellion came in from the left. All for One activated his phasing quirk. Izuku canceled the swing mid-arc and fired Ebony with his free hand. A charged shot aimed not at the villain's body, but at the ground beneath him. The explosion of force launched debris upward, blocking All for One's sight for a fraction of a second. In that fraction, Trickster, Izuku appeared behind All for One. Not attacking, waiting. All for One spun, activated 3 quirks at once, a repulsion field, a hardening, and a counterburst, all aimed behind him, all aimed at where Izuku had been. But Izuku had already moved again, another Trickster dash, now above, in the air, looking down. "Now," he shouted. All Might moved, the last of One for All. Every remaining ember of power concentrated into a single fist. He appeared in front of All for One, the one direction the villain hadn't guarded, and swung. United States of Smash! The punch hit All for One in the face, in the ruined mass of scar tissue that served as his features. The impact was beyond measurement. The shockwave blew outward like a nuclear detonation, flattening everything in a 200-meter radius. The ground cratered. Buildings fell. The sky itself seemed to ripple. All for One flew, backward, through the air, through the concrete. His body, for all its accumulated quirks, couldn't withstand the full force of One for All's final blow, but he was alive. Izuku could feel it. The villain's presence, twisted, ancient, wrong, still pulsed with life, weakened, broken, but alive. And All Might collapsed. His muscle form vanished for the last time. The steam released from his body. His emaciated frame hit the ground, and he didn't get up. All Might. Izuku dropped from the air, landed beside him. The old hero was breathing. Barely. Conscious. Barely. But his power was gone. Truly gone. The last ember of One for All had burned out. Did we get him? All Might whispered. Izuku looked across the battlefield, through the dust, the debris. All for One stood up, shattered, broken. Half his quirks burned out. His body was a ruin, but he was standing, laughing. Magnificent, All for One said, tech blood running from every visible orifice. Absolutely magnificent, the last of One for All, spent on me, and it still wasn't enough. He took a step forward, then another, moving toward All Might, toward the fallen symbol of peace. I'm going to kill you now, All for One said, and then I'm going to kill the boy, and then... No. Izuku's voice cut through the destruction. He stood between All for One and All Might, rebellion at his side, both guns drawn, red coat settling around his frame. You're done. Child. All for One's tone was patronizing. I have fought for 2 centuries. I have killed thousands. You are a student, a boy. Half your life isn't even. I don't care about your resume. Izuku's eyes changed. Not just color, something deeper. The green was gone. The red was gone. What replaced them was white. Pure, blazing, absolute white. The air temperature dropped and spiked simultaneously. The ground beneath his feet began to fracture, not from force, but from the sheer presence of what was awakening. His body began to change, not the devil trigger he'd used before. Something beyond it, something deeper. The power from the Hellgate fragments merged with his natural demonic energy, combining, amplifying, transcending. His skin darkened past crimson into pure obsidian. His frame grew taller, broader, armored in carapace that shimmered like heat off asphalt. His wings unfurled, massive, spreading 20 feet in either direction, membranes blazing with white fire. Rebellion changed in his hands, growing, evolving, the blades splitting and reforming into something new. Something that wasn't just a weapon, it was judgment. Izuku Midoriya, fully transformed, fully ascended, hovered 3 feet off the ground. The rubble beneath him floated, the air distorted, reality bent. Let me show you, Izuku said. His voice was chorus, an army speaking in unison. What a real demon looks like. All for One's composure cracked. For the first time in 2 centuries, genuine terror crossed his features. He activated every remaining quirk simultaneously, right, dozens of them. A storm of power, force and fire and wind and darkness and matter, manipulation and spatial warping, all concentrated into a single desperate attack aimed at the ascending form before him. Izuku raised his transformed blade one swing. The arc of energy that left the blade was pure white, silent, absolute. It moved faster than physics should allow, crossing the distance between them in less than a nanosecond. It hit All for One's combined attack and erased it. Not deflected, not overpowered, erased, like it had never existed. Then it hit All for One. The villain didn't scream, didn't fly. He simply ceased to occupy the space he'd been standing in. The energy carved through his accumulated quirks, through his phasing, through his hardening, through every defense he'd built over 200 years. It destroyed them, all of them, burned them out of his system like cauterizing a wound. What was left was a man. Just a man. Old, broken, quirkless for the first time in his centuries-long existence. All for One collapsed face first into the rubble, unconscious, defeated, alive barely, but stripped of everything that had made him a threat. Izuku descended. His transformation faded, the obsidian armor receding, the wings folding, the white light dimming. He stood as himself, green hair, human skin, red coat. He was exhausted, more drained than he'd ever been. His legs shook. His vision swam, but he was standing. The cameras found them minutes later. News helicopters, drones, cell phones from evacuated civilians watching from a distance. They captured the image that would define a generation. All Might, fallen, human, powerless, lying in the rubble of Kamino Ward. And standing above him, red coat blowing in the wind, sword resting on his shoulder, Izuku Midoriya. 15 years old, half demon. The boy who defeated the unkillable villain, the Son of Sparda. The aftermath of Kamino was seismic. All Might retired. There was no hiding it. The world had seen his emaciated form on live television. The symbol of peace, gone. The pillar that held hero society together crumbled. All for One was imprisoned in Tartarus, the maximum security facility for the world's most dangerous villains. Stripped of his quirks, blind, broken, but alive, because even Izuku, in his fully ascended state, had chosen not to kill him. Not out of mercy, out of message. The world needed to see that the greatest villain in history could be defeated and brought to justice, that the system still worked, that there was someone who could replace All Might. Izuku Midoriya became the most famous person in Japan overnight. Not just famous, legendary. The footage of his transformation played on every screen in the country. The image of him standing over All Might, protecting the fallen symbol, became iconic. Murals, posters, t-shirts. He was 16 years old. The world didn't know what to do with him. He wasn't a licensed hero. He was a student, a minor, a teenager who had killed a villain, defeated another, and publicly demonstrated power that dwarfed every active pro-hero in Japan. The Hero Public Safety Commission wanted to control him, to register him, to put him under supervision and regulation. Izuku told them to come and try. They didn't. UA held a press conference. Principal Nezu, small, brilliant, inhuman, addressed the media. Izuku Midoriya is a student at UA Academy. He will continue his education. He will earn his provisional license through the proper channels. His abilities are his own, not a national asset, not a weapon, not a tool of government. The commission seethed, but they couldn't argue. Public opinion was too firmly on Izuku's side. Back at school, things changed. Again, the Hero Corps students looked at Izuku differently now, not with the casual awe of the entrance exam or the impressed fascination of the sports festival, with something deeper, something quieter. He had killed a man, defeated a god, protected the symbol of peace, and then come back to class on Monday and asked to borrow Kirishima's eraser. They didn't know how to reconcile those things. But Izuku didn't change. He still made jokes, still wore the coat, still ate pizza at inappropriate times, still kissed Momo on the rooftop after class and walked her to the dorm. If anything, he was more relaxed. The training camp attack, Muscular's death, had been a weight. Kamino had lifted it. He'd proven to himself that he could face the worst the world had to offer and win. The question now was, what was next? What was next came from an unexpected direction. 6 weeks after Kamino, Izuku woke in the middle of the night. Not from a sound or a sense of danger. From something inside him, his blood was singing. He sat up in bed, looked at his hands. Red light pulsed beneath his skin, visible, rhythmic, like a heartbeat made of fire. The Hellgate fragments he'd absorbed. They were resonating, all at once. All together, something was trying to open. He threw on his coat and left the dormitory, crossed the UA campus at a sprint, reached the front gates, and stopped. The sky was wrong. Above UA, above Japan, the night sky had turned red. Not sunset red, blood red, a color that existed in no natural spectrum. The stars were gone. The moon was gone. In their place, a rift. A tear in the sky itself, miles wide, pulsing, and through it, falling like rain, shapes. Demons, not the metaphorical kind. Not villains with scary quirks or bioengineered weapons. Real demons. Creatures from the dimension Sparda had sealed 2,000 years ago. Twisted, scaled, winged, clawed. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Falling from the rift like an invasion. Izuku stared up at the opening sky. At the army descending upon his world, his phone buzzed. Messages flooding in. Momo, Todoroki, Ida, Bakugo, All Might. The same message from all of them. What's happening? Izuku looked at the sky, at his hands, still pulsing with that deep red light, at the sword materializing unbidden at his hip, responding to the demonic presence in the air. Dad's locks are breaking, he said to no one, and everything he kept out is coming in. He drew rebellion. The blade burned with white fire. All right, guess it's time to earn the family name. The demons hit the ground across Japan simultaneously. Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, Sapporo. Every major city found itself under assault by creatures that no quirk database could classify. The hero agencies scrambled, pro-heroes engaged, the military mobilized, but the demons weren't like villains. They didn't have quirks. They had powers that predated human civilization. They were fast, strong, durable, and utterly without mercy. They killed everything they touched. UA became a fortress. The campus was surrounded within an hour. Lesser demons clawing at the barriers, testing the school's defenses. The teaching staff held the perimeter. 13 created black holes that swallowed demon swarms. Present Mike's voice shattered them at close range. Midnight's pheromones were useless. They weren't biological in any way her quirk could affect. Inside the main building, Nezu coordinated, and Izuku stood at the front gate. Alone. The first wave came. 30 demons. Scaled, bipedal, armed with bladed limbs. They surged toward the gate in a mass of chitin and fury. Izuku moved. He launched into the swarm with rebellion raised. The first swing cut 5 of them in half, their bodies splitting cleanly, black ichor spraying across the pavement. The second swing took 3 more heads. He spun, coat flaring out behind him, and the third swing was an arc of pure energy that carved through the remaining mass. But more came. Always more. The rift above was still open, still pouring out new horrors. Izuku sheathed rebellion, drew both guns, his eyes were red, his blood was singing. Two-some time, he opened fire. Not with the restrained rounds he used on humans, full power, full demonic charge. Each bullet was a miniature bomb of compressed spiritual energy. They hit the advancing demons and detonated explosions of white light that left nothing behind. No bodies, no ichor, just empty space. He mowed through them. Row after row, wave after wave, standing at the gate like a one-man army, firing in every direction simultaneously, spinning, flipping, shooting backward over his shoulder, curving bullets around corners. "Come on!" he roared, not scared, not desperate, exhilarated. "Is that all you've got? My dad sealed your whole dimension and you come at me with this?" A larger demon descended from the rift directly above him. Winged, massive, the size of a truck, with 6 arms and a mouth that split its head in thirds. Izuku holstered both guns, caught the demon's descending claw with one hand, stopped it cold. Rebellion. The sword appeared in his free hand. He drove it upward, through the demon's palm, up through its arm, through its chest, and out through the top of its head. Black blood rained. The creature convulsed and dissolved into ash. Izuku landed, shook the blood from his coat. Behind him, Yue's gate was untouched. Not a single demon had gotten past. "Midoriya," Momo's voice. She was running across the courtyard toward him, fully dressed in her hero costume, a massive cannon already forming from her exposed skin. "They're hitting the city too," she said, reaching him. "The news, it's everywhere. Tokyo's overrun. I know." He looked at the sky. The rift was widening, slowly but visibly. "This isn't going to stop, not unless we close that thing." "Can you?" He stared at the tier in reality, at the dimension beyond it, a swirling hellscape of fire and darkness, felt his blood respond to it, felt the Hellgate fragments inside him resonate with the broken seal. "Maybe, but I'd have to go up there." He looked back at her. "And I'd have to go through whatever's keeping it open. Then I'm coming with you." "Momo, I'm not asking permission." Her eyes were fierce, dark and brilliant, and absolutely unwavering. "You don't get to fly into another dimension alone, not while I'm standing here." He looked at her, at this woman, because she wasn't a girl in this moment, she was something forged and absolute, who stood beside him facing an army from another world without flinching. He loved her. He hadn't said it yet, hadn't found the moment, but he loved her. "Okay," he said, "but when I say run, I won't. You make something that blows a path through them and then we both run forward. Together." She smiled, sharp, beautiful. "That I can do." They didn't go immediately. They couldn't. The rift needed to be reached, and reaching it required dealing with what was below it first. Izuku rallied his classmates, all of them. The full roster of Class 1A plus reinforcements from Class 1B and the support department. He stood in the main hall of UA, red coat, sword on his shoulder, and addressed them. "Here's the situation. The sky is ripped open. Demons are falling out of it. Every hero in Japan is fighting them right now. Most of them are losing because they don't know what these things are." He paused. "Let that land. I do. These things are from the same place my power comes from. They're strong, but they can be killed. Regular quirks hurt them less than they should, but enough force in the right spot puts them down." He looked around the room, at the faces, scared, determined, young. "I need to get to that rift and close it. But to do that, I need a path cleared. I need teams holding the perimeter around UA. I need the strongest fighters pushing through the demon concentration in Musutafu toward the rift's epicenter." Bakugo stepped forward. "What are the teams?" No argument. No posturing. Just a soldier asking for orders. Izuku divided them. Bakugo, Todoroki, and Kirishima would lead the perimeter defense. Ida would coordinate evacuation and civilian protection. Tokoyami, with Dark Shadow's power in the perpetual darkness of the red sky, would serve as aerial support. "And my team," Izuku said, "Momo, Fumikage with Dark Shadow, and me. We push through to the center. We close the rift." "How?" Ida asked. "Working on that part," Izuku admitted. "But step 1 is getting there alive. I'll figure out step 2 when I'm face to face with whatever's on the other side." Nobody laughed. Nobody argued. They moved. The push through Musutafu was war. Not a skirmish. Not a battle. War. Demons filled the streets in packs. Some were small, dog-sized, fast, lethal in numbers. Some were large, building-sized monstrosities that crushed cars underfoot. Some flew. Some burrowed. Some appeared from nothing. Izuku led the spearhead. His team behind him. Momo to his right, creating weapons and equipment on the fly, barriers when they needed cover, explosives when they needed space, complex chemical compounds that reacted to demon physiology like acid. Tokoyami flew above them. Dark shadow expanded to monstrous size in the absence of sunlight. The sentient shadow carved through flying demons with claws the size of telephone poles. And Izuku. Izuku was the tip of the spear. He didn't hold back. There was nothing to hold back for. These weren't humans. They weren't people. They were monsters from another world. And everyone he cut down was one less that could reach the civilians behind him. Rebellion sang in his hands. Every swing ended lives. Every bullet found a target. He was fire and steel and fury, carving a path through the demon army with the absolute conviction a man who knew exactly what he was doing. A greater demon blocked their path, a creature of living stone, 40 feet tall, with 6 red eyes and fists like wrecking balls. It saw Izuku approaching and roared, a sound that shattered windows for 3 blocks. Izuku didn't slow down. He jumped. Trickster dashed upward along the creature's body, knee, chest, shoulder, head. At its crown, he planted Rebellion between its central eyes and poured in energy. Helmbreaker. He drove the sword down through the demon's skull, down through its head, its neck, its chest. He fell through the creature's body like a knife through butter, emerging from its underside drenched in black blood as the thing split in two and collapsed. He landed in a crouch, stood up, and kept walking. Momo watched him from 20 meters back. Her heart hammered, not from fear, from something more primal. The sight of him, unstoppable, untouchable, absolutely in his element, stirred something deep in her chest. Momo! He was ahead, looking back, grinning through the blood. You coming? She created a motorcycle, out of nothing, from the lipids of her body, a fully functional motorcycle with armored plating and a mounted cannon. Try to keep up, she said, revving the engine and roaring past him. Izuku laughed. Actually laughed. In the middle of war. In the middle of hell raining from the sky. That's my girl. They reached the epicenter an hour later. The rift's anchor point was in central Musutafu, directly above the city square where a massive pillar of red energy connected the sky tier to the ground. The pillar was guarded. Not by lesser demons, by something else. He stood at the base of the pillar, 7 feet tall, silver hair that fell past his shoulders, a face that was beautiful and terrible, aristocratic features twisted by ancient malice. His skin was pale blue, his eyes were gold. He wore armor that looked grown rather than forged, organic, shifting, alive. He felt Izuku's approach, turned and smiled. Son of Sparda, he said. His voice was a weapon, low, resonant, carrying power in its syllables. At last. Izuku stopped 50 meters away, Rebellion drawn, Momo behind him on the motorcycle, Tokoyami circling above. You're the one, Izuku said, the messenger's master. Vergil would have been a more fitting name for you, the demon said, ignoring the question. You have so much of your father in you. The power, the arrogance, the insufferable need to protect these insects. You still haven't told me your name, the demon raised one hand. A katana materialized, elegant, slender, glowing with purple energy, the opposite of rebellion in every way. Where rebellion was power and fury, this blade was precision and cruelty. I am Mundus, he raised the katana, prince of the demon world, emperor of the realm your father stole from me 2 millennia ago. His golden eyes burned. And today, I take it back, starting with his blood. Izuku pointed rebellion at Mundus. You know, every villain I've fought has given me a speech before the fight. You're all the same. Big words, big title, big dramatic entrance. He dropped into stance. Then you hit the ground and I go home and eat pizza. Mundus didn't laugh. You have your father's tongue. Let's see if you have his strength. He moved. Fast. Not human fast. Not even demon fast. Reality warping fast. One moment he was 50 meters away. The next, his katana was at Izuku's throat. Izuku parried. Barely. Rebellion caught the katana an inch from his neck. The clash of demonic steel sent a shockwave outward that cracked the pavement in every direction. Mundus pressed. His blade slid along Rebellion's sparks of purple and crimson, then disengaged and struck again, 3 times in a single second, each strike aimed at a vital point. Each strike carrying enough force to cleave mountains. Izuku blocked the first, dodged the second. The third caught his shoulder, cut through his coat, through his skin, through muscle. Pain lanced through him. Real pain. Not the kind that healed in seconds. This blade burned where it cut. The wound sizzled with dark energy that fought his regeneration, pushed back against his healing factor. "Feel that?" Mundus said, circling. "This blade was forged in the deepest pit of the demon world. It burns with the same energy your father used to seal the gates. You cannot heal from its wounds as easily as you heal from human weapons." Izuku gripped his bleeding shoulder. The wound was closing, but slowly. Seconds instead of moments. "Good to know," Izuku said. He shifted rebellion to his right hand. "Means I'll actually have to try." He exploded forward. Not trickster, raw speed. Pure physical acceleration backed by every ounce of demonic energy in his body. He closed the gap in a blink and unleashed a 5-hit combo, each strike from a different angle, each carrying enough power to level a city block. Mundus parried them all. Every single one. His katana moved like water, flowing from defense to defense without effort, without urgency, like he was playing, the Demon Prince was playing. Is this what passes for power in this generation? Mundus deflected the 5th strike and countered a thrust that nearly took Izuku through the chest. Izuku twisted aside, the blade cutting a line across his ribs instead. Sparda would weep. Izuku's blood ran hot. Not from injury. From fury, he activated Devil Trigger. The transformation was explosive. The pillar of crimson energy, the armored form, the wings, the changed blade. It came faster now, smoother, more practiced. In 2 seconds, he was fully transformed. He hit Mundus again, harder, faster. His attack shook the ground with each strike. The air screamed with every swing. Devil Trigger. Izuku was a hurricane of steel and fury. Mundus stopped playing. The Demon Prince's own aura flared, purple and black, ancient and vast. His katana moved faster. His body flickered between positions. He matched Izuku blow for blow, not overwhelmed, not struggling. Equal. They fought across the city square, through buildings, through the air. Their blades clashed hundreds of times in seconds, each collision generating shockwaves that flattened everything around them. Momo had retreated to a safe distance with Tokoyami. She watched, helpless to intervene in a clash that existed beyond anything she could affect. Her hands shook. Her heart hammered. But she didn't leave. The fight escalated. Izuku landed hits, deep cuts across Mundus's armor that leaked black blood. Mundus landed his own, burning slashes that fought Izuku's healing, that accumulated damage his body couldn't ignore. They separated. 20 meters, both bleeding, both standing. "You're better than I expected," Mundus admitted, "but not better than your father, and I killed him." Izuku's blood ran cold. "What?" Mundus smiled, cruel, knowing. "Oh, you didn't know? Your father didn't simply leave, wrath boy. He left to face me, to stop me from opening the gates from the other side. He fought me in the demon world." The smile widened. "He lost." Izuku stared. His transformed body trembled, not from exhaustion, from something else, something that was building in his chest like a scream. "You're lying." "Am I?" Ask yourself, why hasn't he returned? Why in all these years hasn't Sparda come back to his wife? His son? Mundus raised his katana. "Because he's dead. I killed him, and I took his power. The power of the legendary Dark Knight. I consumed it. It flows in me now." Izuku's grip on rebellion tightened until the handle cracked. "I used his own power to weaken the gates from inside," Mundus continued. "To shatter the seals he spent his life maintaining. His sacrifice meant nothing. His legacy, you are the last echo of a dead man's dream." Silence. The city burned. The rift pulsed. Demons descended from the sky, and Izuku Midoriya stood still. Then he laughed, low, building, rising. A laugh that started in his gut and erupted from his throat with a force that made the air tremble. It wasn't the laugh of a broken man. It wasn't hysterical. It wasn't sad. It was the laugh of something that had just found a reason to stop holding back entirely. "You killed my father," Izuku said. His voice had changed, deeper, layered with harmonics that shook the ground. His transformation deepened. The crimson armor thickening, the wings spreading wider, white light beginning to bleed from the joints and seams of his demonic form. "You consumed his power. You broke his legacy." He raised rebellion. The blade was changing, pulsing with white fire, growing, evolving, responding to something in Izuku that had never been touched before. "Then I'll take it back." His aura erupted, not the normal crimson of Devil Trigger, white, Pure, absolute, blinding white, the same light that had appeared against All for One, but deeper now, stronger. Fed by fury and grief and love and the absolute refusal to let his father's sacrifice mean nothing, Izuku ascended, past Devil Trigger, past what he'd achieved against All for One, into something new. Something that existed only because his blood sang with the same power his father had wielded, the power Mundus had stolen and couldn't fully control. Because Sparda's power recognized its heir. Inside Mundus's body, the stolen demonic energy of the legendary Dark Knight began to rebel, to pull, to respond to the call of Sparda's bloodline like iron filings toward a magnet. Mundus felt it. His eyes went wide. What? That power doesn't belong to you, Izuku said. His voice was a chorus of angels and demons speaking in unison. It never did. He held out his hand, open palm, fingers splayed, and pulled. Mundus screamed. A sound that wasn't human, wasn't demon, something older, rawer, more primal. Purple light erupted from his body, writhing, tearing free from his being. The stolen power of Sparda, golden and ancient and vast, ripped itself from Mundus's cells and streamed through the air toward Izuku. It hit him like a wave, power beyond measurement. The full might of the legendary Dark Knight, 2,000 years of accumulated demonic energy, the strength that had sealed dimensions, the sword that had turned the tide of an ancient war, poured into Izuku Midoriya. He absorbed it, all of it. His body blazed white. His transformation evolved again, the armor becoming something new. Not Devil Trigger, something beyond. Something that combined his own power with his father's stolen legacy, Sin Devil Trigger. He was massive, 10 feet tall, armored in silver and crimson, 4 wings of pure energy, eyes that burned like twin suns. Rebellion had transformed with him, no longer a broadsword, a great sword of impossible size, wreathed in spiral energy that distorted reality around its edge. Mundus stood across from him, diminished, weakened, the stolen power gone, returned to its rightful heir. The demon prince was still powerful, still ancient, still dangerous, but he was no longer invincible, and he knew it. Impossible, Mundus whispered. Nothing's impossible, Izuku said. He raised his father's reclaimed blade. Isn't that what heroes say? Mundus attacked, desperate now. His katana screamed through the air, every ounce of his remaining power behind a single killing blow aimed at Izuku's throat. Izuku didn't dodge. He caught the blade between 2 fingers. The katana that had cut him minutes ago, that had burned his flesh and resisted his healing, held between his thumb and forefinger like a chopstick. He squeezed. The katana shattered. Fragments of demonic metal scattered into the wind like dark confetti. Mundus stared at his broken weapon, at the fragments, then at Izuku. For the first time in 2,000 years, the Prince of Demons felt what his victims felt. Helplessness. Izuku's blade came up, across, down. 3 swings, 3 slashes of pure, absolute, dimensional energy. They carved through Mundus's armor, through his flesh, through the very fabric of his being. Not killing him. Worse, severing him from the world. The slashes opened rifts in Mundus's body, portals back to the demon world. His form began to disintegrate, pulled back through the dimensional barrier, sucked back to the realm he'd come from. No. Mundus clawed at the ground, at reality, at anything to anchor himself. I am Mundus. I am eternal. I cannot be. You're nothing. Izuku's voice was final. Absolute. The last word in a sentence 2,000 years long. Go home, and never come back. One final swing. The greatsword drove downward into the pillar of red energy that anchored the rift, into the connection between worlds. The blade pierced it, filled it with Sparda's reclaimed power, and sealed it from the inside. The energy pillar shattered. The rift in the sky screamed, a sound like reality crying out. It began to close, to fold in on itself. The red sky flickered. Stars appeared in patches. The tier knitted shut, inch by inch, pulling the demons back through, sucking the invasion back to whence it came. Mundus went with it. His body disintegrated, pulled through the closing rift, back to the demon world, back behind the newly strengthened seal. His scream faded. His presence vanished. And then it was over. The sky was dark, normal dark, stars and moon and the warm light of a world that had survived. Izuku Midoriya stood in the center of the city square. His transformation faded, silver armor receding, wings dissolving, size returning to normal, green hair, human skin, red coat. He was shaking. Every muscle in his body trembled with the aftermath of channeling that much power. His vision blurred, his knees buckled, he fell, and Momo caught him. She was there. Of course she was there. She'd never left. Through the entire fight, through the cosmic scale clash of powers that could have erased her from existence with a stray hit, she'd stayed. She caught him, held him, lowered them both to the ground until she was kneeling with his head in her lap. "I've got you," she said. Her voice was steady. Her hands were shaking. "I've got you." Izuku looked up at her, smiled, weak and genuine and full of something that made her eyes fill with tears. "Told you I'd come back," he murmured. "You absolute idiot," she whispered. A tear fell on his cheek. "You beautiful, impossible idiot." He reached up, wiped the tear from her face with a trembling thumb. "Momo." "What?" "I love you." She laughed, wet, broken, beautiful. "I love you too. Now shut up and rest." He closed his eyes, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Izuku Midoriya slept. The world rebuilt. It took months. The demon invasion had lasted only hours, from the rifts opening to its closure, but the damage was immense. Thousands dead, cities damaged, infrastructure shattered, but humanity survived, as it always did. The demons were gone, all of them. Every creature that had crossed through the rift was pulled back when it closed or destroyed by the heroes who fought them. The seal was restored, stronger than before, reinforced by Sparda's reclaimed power channeled through his son. Izuku was unconscious for 4 days after Kamino. When he woke, he was in Yue's infirmary. Momo was asleep in the chair beside his bed. Still in her torn hero costume, one hand holding his, he looked at her, at the dark hair spilling over her shoulders, the bandage on her forehead, the exhaustion in her sleeping face. He squeezed her hand, she stirred, opened her eyes, saw him awake, and the smile that spread across her face was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. "Hey," she said. "Hey," he said. "You slept for 4 days. I was tired. You sealed a dimensional rift with your dead father's reclaimed power after evolving into a new form of existence. That's why I was tired." She laughed, leaned forward, kissed him, soft and lingering and full of relief. When she pulled back, her eyes were serious. "The world's been asking about you. The news, the government, everyone." "What are they saying?" "They're saying you saved the world." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "I just didn't want anyone else to die." She held his hand tighter. "I know." Recovery took 2 weeks. Not because of physical damage. His healing factor had that handled. But the spiritual exhaustion of channeling his father's full power for the first time had drained something deeper. Something that needed time to refill. During those 2 weeks, visitors came constantly. All might. Still skeletal, still powerless, but alive and grateful. He sat at Izuku's bedside for an hour and said very little. Just being there was enough. Todoroki came once, stood in the doorway for 30 seconds, said, "Thank you," and left. From Todoroki, that was a novel. Kirishima cried. Actually cried. Great heaving sobs while gripping Izuku's hand and calling him the manliest man to ever live. Ida brought a formal letter of gratitude from the Hero Emergency Management Agency, then broke down midway through reading it and hugged Izuku instead. Bakugo came last, stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "You almost died," Bakugo said. "No, I didn't. You sealed a rift between dimensions while fighting a demon god. You were unconscious for 4 days. Power nap." Bakugo's eye twitched. Then, incredibly, he smirked. "When you're recovered, we're fighting. A real fight. No holding back." Izuku grinned. "Looking forward to it?" Bakugo left, but at the door he stopped, didn't turn around. "Good work, Midoriya." Then he was gone. The world moved forward. The provisional license exam came 6 weeks later. Izuku passed it without incident, which is to say he aced every component so decisively that the examiners ran out of scoring metrics. He received his provisional hero license alongside his classmates. He held the card in his hand. His photo stared back at him, green-eyed, grinning, the collar of his red coat visible at the bottom of the frame, licensed hero. Izuku Midoriya. Momo was beside him, her own license in hand. She bumped his shoulder with hers. "Official now?" she said. "Took long enough. You could have gotten it months ago. Paperwork's boring." She rolled her eyes fondly. He kissed her temple. Around them, their classmates celebrated. 18 months ago, they'd been nervous teenagers walking through UA's doors for the first time. Now they were heroes, licensed, trained, tempered by fire, literal and metaphorical. The world was different. All might was gone, not dead, but retired. The symbol of peace had been replaced by something else. Not a single pillar, but a foundation. A generation of heroes trained by the best school in the country, tempered by villain attacks and demon invasions and the pressure of a world that needed them. But if that generation had a face, a name that everyone knew, that everyone felt safe hearing, it was Midoriya. 4 months after the demon invasion, Izuku received a letter. Not an official one. Not from the government or UA or the HPSC. It arrived in an unmarked envelope, slid under the door of his dorm room, no return address, no postage. Inside was a photograph, a woman with green hair and kind eyes, younger, happier, standing beside a tall man with dark hair and warm features. They were smiling, holding hands. Behind them, a sunset. On the back of the photograph, in handwriting Izuku had never seen but somehow recognized, "I'm proud of you. Guard the gate well, son. Love, Dad." Izuku stared at the photograph for a very long time. His eyes burned, his throat tightened. A single tear rolled down his cheek. He wasn't dead. Sparda wasn't dead. Mundus had lied. His father was alive somewhere. Weakened, maybe. Recovering. But alive and watching. Izuku placed the photograph on his desk. Beside his hero license, beside the photo of his mom, beside the picture of Momo that he'd never admit to having but she already knew about. He wiped his eyes, took a breath, smiled. "Thanks, Dad." Second year at UA began with a new threat. The hero killer's ideology had seeded something in the months since his arrest. A movement, not the League of Villains. That organization had fractured after All for One's defeat. Shigaraki had disappeared. Kurogiri was in custody. Their lieutenants scattered. But something new had grown in its place. The Liberation Front, a massive organization, tens of thousands strong, that believed the current hero society was a cage, that quirks should be used freely, that the distinction between hero and villain was artificial. Their leader was Redestro, a businessman, CEO of a massive corporation. He controlled resources, influence, and an army of believers willing to fight and die for liberation. And he wanted Izuku, to kill him, to recruit him. Think about it, the holographic message said, transmitted through channels Izuku couldn't trace. Redestro's face was composed, corporate, reasonable. You exist outside the system. You're not bound by quirk law because you don't have a quirk. The rules that constrain heroes, they don't apply to you. You're already free. A smile. Join us and we'll make everyone free. Izuku watched the message in his dorm room, Momo beside him, brow furrowed. "What are you going to do?" she asked. Izuku deleted the message. "What I always do. Show up uninvited and ruin their day." The Liberation Front made their move 3 weeks later. Deku City, a municipality they had secretly taken over from within. Every citizen a member. Every building a fortress. 100,000 soldiers armed with freed quirks and liberation ideology. The hero agencies sent a task force. 2,000 pro-heroes. The largest coordinated raid in history. Izuku went as part of UA's second-year emergency deployment. Not by assignment, by choice. Aizawa had tried to keep him in reserve. "You're too valuable to risk on the front line," Aizawa said. "Then put me on the front line so it ends faster." Izuku replied. He couldn't argue with that logic. The Battle of Deku City was apocalyptic. 100,000 liberation soldiers versus 2,000 heroes. The math was bad. Even with the quality advantage of pro-heroes, the sheer numbers were overwhelming, until Izuku entered the field. He appeared at the center of the front line. Red coat, rebellion on his shoulder, both guns at his hips, eyes already shifting red. He addressed the opposing army. 100,000 people, many of them looking at him with recognition, with awe, with fear. "I'll give you one chance," Izuku's voice boomed, amplified by demonic energy, carrying across the entire city. "One. Stand down. Walk away. Nobody needs to die today." Silence. A moment of hesitation through the opposing ranks. Then Redestro's voice echoed from speakers throughout the city. "Don't listen! He's one man, one boy. Liberation cannot be stopped by." Izuku moved. What followed was not a battle, it was a demonstration. He carved through the Liberation Front's lines like a ship through waves. Not killing, he'd made that distinction. These were people, misguided, armed, dangerous, but people. Civilians who'd been radicalized. Teenagers, parents, workers. So he didn't kill them, he broke them. Rebellion's flat side shattered bones without cutting flesh. His guns fired concussive rounds that sent bodies flying without piercing them. Trickster dashes carried him through enemy formations so fast they saw only the aftermath, the red streak and the bodies left behind. He fought through the Liberation Front's main army in 20 minutes. left a trail of unconscious, groaning bodies 3 blocks wide. No deaths, no fatalities, but hundreds of broken limbs, shattered weapons, and destroyed fighting spirits. The front line of the hero task force didn't have to fight. They just walked through the path Izuku had carved and arrested the people he'd left in his wake. But Destro wasn't done. The CEO of Detnerat stood at the center of Deka City, surrounded by his inner circle. His stress quirk at maximum output, his body bloated with stored energy, skin glowing red, 70 feet tall and radiating enough power to level city blocks with a single strike. "I am liberation," he roared, swinging a fist that destroyed an entire street. Izuku appeared on a rooftop in front of him, looked up at the massive, glowing villain. "You're a rich guy having a tantrum," Izuku said. He drew rebellion. "Let me give you some perspective." He jumped, straight up, 100 feet, past Redestro's head into the sky above. He flipped, pointed rebellion downward, channeled his demonic energy into the blade, not full power, not Sin Devil Trigger, not even regular Devil Trigger, just his base strength, his normal, everyday power. Helmbreaker. He fell, accelerating. Rebellion's tip aimed directly at Redestro's massive skull. The villain tried to block. Both arms crossed over his head. His stress quirk concentrated all its stored energy into his defense. It didn't matter. The blade hit Redestro's guard and punched through. Through his crossed arms, through his stress-hardened defense, through his enhanced body. Izuku drove Rebellion through the villain's skull, through his brain, through his massive body, straight down through him like a nail through paper. He passed through entirely, emerging from Redestro's feet in a spray of blood and liberated stress energy. He landed on the ground. Redestro's body, already shrinking, the stress draining, collapsed behind him. The impact shook the city. Redestro was dead before he hit the ground. Izuku stood in the aftermath. Rebellion dripping red, eyes burning. The Liberation Front's inner circle stared at him, at their dead leader, at the boy who had just ended their revolution in a single swing. "Anyone else?" Izuku asked. They surrendered. All of them. Every last one. The aftermath of Deka City was complicated. Redestro's death sparked another media debate, but this time, public opinion leaned heavily in Izuku's favor. Redestro had been a 70-foot-tall berserker actively destroying a city. The threat was obvious. The response was proportional. More importantly, the battle had broken the Liberation Front. Without their leader, without their invincible army, the movement crumbled. Tens of thousands of members were arrested. The infrastructure was dismantled, and Hero Society breathed easier. For a while. Final year. Third year at UA. Izuku was 17. The world looked different than it had when he'd walked through UA's gates 3 years ago. Hero Society was stronger. The villain underground was shattered. The demon threat was sealed. The Liberation Front was gone, and Izuku Midoriya stood at the center of all of it. He was, by any objective measure, the strongest being in Japan, possibly the world. His fame was absolute. His reputation was untouchable. He'd saved the world, literally, and everyone knew it. But he was still 17, still a student, still eating pizza on rooftops with his girlfriend and making his mom cry every time he called home. The school year was quiet, a welcome change. Classes, training, normal teenage things, festivals, exams, movie nights in the common room. Izuku let himself relax, let himself be a kid for the first time in years. Momo graduated alongside him. Top of the class academically, Izuku was firmly in the middle by choice. She'd been offered positions at every top hero agency in Japan. She chose to open her own Yaoyorozu Hero Support, a combination hero agency and equipment development firm, using her creation quirk and her intellect to support heroes on a structural level. Izuku was her first recruit. "I'm not calling you boss," he told her. "You'll call me whatever I tell you to call me," she said, not looking up from paperwork. He grinned. She was right. But the world wouldn't stay quiet. 3 months after graduation, Izuku received a message. Not on his phone, not through any electronic channel. It appeared on his bathroom mirror, written in demonic script, a language he'd never studied but understood instinctively. The gate weakens again. "Come home, son." Not signed, but he knew, the same way he'd known the photograph, Sparda was calling him. Izuku stared at the message, at the words that promised answers to questions he'd carried since he was 10 years old. His father. Alive. Reachable. He made a phone call. "Momo, I need to go somewhere." "Where?" "Home. The other home." Silence on the line, then the demon world. Yeah, more silence. He could hear her breathing, thinking, processing. How long? She asked. I don't know. Will you come back? Always. He heard her exhale, steadying herself. Then go. Find your father. Fix whatever needs fixing. A pause, and then come home. To me. Always, he said again, because it was a promise and he didn't break those. He went to the spot where the rift had been. Central Musutafu. The city square rebuilt now, the crater filled and paved over. No sign of what had happened there a year and a half ago. But Izuku could feel it. The seal was thin here. The barrier between worlds was like a membrane at this location, transparent to someone with the right blood. He drew rebellion, poured in his power. His father's power. The reclaimed legacy of Sparda flowing through his veins, answering his will. He cut the air, not wildly, precisely. A surgeon's incision through the fabric of reality. A portal opened. Not a rift, not a tear. A door on the other side. Red skies, stone landscapes. A world of ancient power and endless night. Izuku stepped through. The demon world was everything and nothing like he'd expected. It was vast, endless. A landscape of floating islands, rivers of fire, and skies painted in eternal twilight. The air was thick with energy, the same energy that ran in his veins, that powered his abilities. He felt alive here. More than alive. His senses exploded outwards, smelling centuries, hearing dimensions, feeling the pulse of a world that recognized his blood. He walked. For hours, days. Time moved differently here. Faster or slower, he couldn't tell. The landscape responded to him as he moved through it. Demons avoiding his path, the terrain shifting to accommodate his direction. Like the world itself was guiding him. On the third day, or what felt like the third day, he found it. A tower. Black stone. Miles high. Rising from the center of a dead plain like a finger pointing at the false sky. At its peak, a light. Warm and golden in a world of cold crimson, he climbed. Not with trickster dashes or demonic flight. On foot, each floor a trial filled with demons that attacked him on sight. He cut through them. He cut through them without slowing, without mercy, without hesitation. These were not confused humans. These were not soldiers of a cause. These were predators. Hunters. Creatures that existed to consume and destroy. Izuku gave them the war they wanted. Floor after floor. Demon after demon. His blade ran black with ichor. His coat was drenched. His eyes burned permanent red in this dimension. His human side dormant. His demon side fully awake. He fought things with no names. Things that had existed for millennia. Things that would have destroyed pro-heroes in seconds. He killed them all, not because they were evil, because they were in his way. At the tower's summit, an empty room. White marble floor. Golden light pouring in from everywhere and nowhere. And a man. Tall. Dark-haired, features sharp and elegant, wearing a purple coat, long, old, worn from centuries of use, a sword on his back, massive, familiar, resonant. He turned when Izuku entered, and his face, that face that Izuku had only seen in one photograph, broke into a smile so warm it split the dimensions. "You look just like your mother," Sparda said. Izuku's throat closed, his eyes burned, his hands shook. "Dad," Sparda crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled his son into an embrace that held 2,000 years of guilt, love, pride, and joy. Izuku hugged him back, and for the first time since he was 10 years old, standing in a ruined apartment with blood on his shirt, he cried, not from sadness, from completion. They talked for what might have been hours or weeks. Sparda explained everything. How he'd left to stop Mundus from the inside. How he'd been weakened, his power stolen, his body imprisoned. How he'd spent years recovering in the demon world, too drained to cross back. How he'd watched through the thinnest parts of the barrier as his son grew into something that surpassed his wildest hopes. "You reclaimed my power," Sparda said, wonder in his voice. "You pulled it from Mundus himself. I felt it happen, felt it return to our bloodline." "It was yours," Izuku said. "I gave it back to us." Sparda shook his head. "No, it's yours now. All of it. I'm old, Izuku, weakened beyond what even you could fix. The gate needs a guardian, and for 2,000 years, that was me." He placed both hands on Izuku's shoulders. "Now it's you," Izuku understood. "You want me to reinforce the seal. I want you to make it permanent." Sparda's eyes, identical to Izuku's in every way, burned with conviction. "I sealed it with my power alone. It lasted 2 millennia, but it was always temporary, always weakening." He squeezed Izuku's shoulders. "You have something I never did. You're half human. Your soul exists in both worlds simultaneously. You can create a seal that's part of both realities, permanent, eternal, unbreakable. And you? Sparda smiled, sad, loving. I'll rest, finally. I've been fighting since before human civilization. I'm tired, son. I want to rest. Izuku's jaw tightened. He just found his father. After 17 years, and now, will I see you again? Sparda pulled him into another hug. The demon world lives in your blood. I'll always be there. Whenever you reach for your power, whenever you transform, whenever you fight, whenever you draw on what you are, that's me, standing beside you. Izuku nodded against his father's chest, swallowed the emotion, breathed. Okay, tell me what to do. The ceiling took everything. Izuku stood at the boundary between worlds, the exact point where the demon dimension met the human one. A crossroads of reality. He planted rebellion in the ground between them. Drew on his full power, all of it, his own, his father's. The accumulated strength of Sparda's bloodline, he pushed it into the barrier, not as a patch or a reinforcement, as a new foundation. His dual nature, human and demon, wove into the seal like thread through cloth, creating something that belonged to both sides, something neither world could reject or erode. It hurt. More than anything had ever hurt, more than the spike through his chest at 10. More than the Nomu's punch, more than Mundus's blade, this was soul pain, identity pain, the agony of someone pouring their essence into an act of creation. He screamed. The demon world shook. The human world flickered. And then it was done. The barrier between worlds solidified, not just sealed, fused, permanent, eternal. Part of reality's structure now, as fundamental as gravity or time. Mundus could never return. No demon army could breach it. The gate was closed forever. Izuku collapsed, fell through the barrier, fell back into the human world, fell back to Earth. He landed on the pavement of central Musutafu. Midnight. Stars above. Normal stars. A normal sky. He lay on the ground, gasping, shaking, empty. Not powerless. Never that. But drained in a way that went deeper than stamina. He'd given a piece of himself to the seal. A permanent piece. He would never be quite as strong as he'd been at his absolute peak. But he was still the strongest thing on Earth by a wide margin. And the world was safe. Truly safe. From the demon world, from dimensional threats, from everything his father had spent 2 millennia fighting. Izuku Midoriya lay on his back and laughed. Momo found him there. She'd been checking the spot every night since he'd left. Waiting, watching, hoping. She ran to him. Dropped to her knees beside him. Pulled his head into her lap. You came back, she said. Told you. His voice was raw, wrecked, smiling. Always. She kissed him. Hard, desperate, full of every hour of worry and waiting and fear. He kissed her back with everything he had left. 2 years later. Tokyo. A sunny afternoon. The Yaoyorozu Hero Agency had become one of the top 10 in Japan within its first year of operation, thanks to Momo's genius and Izuku's presence. Their partnership was legendary. She planned, he executed. Together, they were unstoppable. Izuku walked down the street in civilian clothes, red coat over jeans and a t-shirt. Momo beside him, her hand in his. They were heading to lunch, a new ramen place that Kirishima had recommended. People recognized him on the street. Of course they did. He was the most famous hero in Japan, maybe the world. But he walked normally. No fanfare, no entourage. Just a guy with his girlfriend going to get ramen. A kid ran up to him, maybe 7 years old. Wide eyes, hero t-shirt, red, with a stylized sword on the front. His merchandise, his logo. Midoriya! Midoriya! The kid bounced. You're my favorite hero. Can I have your autograph? Izuku crouched, eye level with the kid. Smiled. What's your name, buddy? Takeshi. Cool name, Takeshi. He signed the kid's shirt, drew a little smiley face next to his name. You want to be a hero when you grow up? Yeah, just like you. Izuku ruffled the kid's hair. You don't need to be like me. Be like you. That's plenty. The kid beamed, ran back to his mom, a woman who bowed gratefully from across the street. Izuku stood up. Momo was watching him with that look, the one she got when he did something that reminded her why she loved him. What? He said. Nothing. She slipped her arm through his. Nothing at all. They walked to lunch. The sun was warm. The city was peaceful. The world was safe. That evening, Izuku stood on the roof of their agency building. The city sprawled below, lights and movement and life. He held a frame in his hand, the photograph from his father, his parents. Young and happy, he looked at it, then at the city, then at the sky. Whole and unbroken. Stars where they should be. No rifts, no red, no invasion. He felt Momo's presence before she spoke. She stood beside him, warm, solid, real. "Thinking about your dad?" she asked. "Yeah." He tucked the photo inside his coat. "He told me to guard the gate. I did." He turned to her, "But I think what he really wanted was for me to have what he never got to keep." "What's that?" "A life. A real one." He pulled her close. "With someone I love." She leaned into him. Her hand found his. Her head rested on his shoulder. "You have that," she said. "I know." He kissed the top of her head. "Trust me, I know." The city hummed below them. Somewhere a villain was probably causing trouble. Somewhere a hero was probably responding. Somewhere someone needed help. But not right now. Right now, the world could wait. Izuku Midoriya, half demon, full hero, son of the legendary Dark Knight, stood on a rooftop with the woman he loved and watched the city he'd saved 100 times over. His phone buzzed. A hero alert. Something downtown. He sighed, smiled, pulled on his coat properly, stretched his arms above his head. "Duty calls?" Momo asked, already creating her hero equipment. "Duty calls." He summoned rebellion. The blade gleamed in the city light. He grinned, the same grin from that first day. That same sharp, confident, unstoppable grin that had walked into UA and changed everything. "Let's rock, baby." He jumped off the building, coat billowing, sword gleaming. Red streak against the night sky. Momo watched him fall with a smile. Then she followed. Together. Always together. And the city below never worried. Not about villains, not about demons, not about anything. Because they had Izuku Midoriya. And he had them. End.
The hero roster. A massive salute to the legends backing this journey. Your support is what keeps the momentum at an all-time high and the dream moving forward. You guys are the absolute best. Pro heroes. The elite front line. Stepping up and setting the pace for the whole community. DA. Fire 05. Symbol of peace. The pillars of the community. The titans who keep our foundations solid and the hype at an all-time high. Alexander Igarza. That guy Miso. Deck. Lydell Scott Jr. James Martin. Victor Larux. Rune Brokstad. Ariuse Bryant. Jonah Wheeler. T-Mac. XXHJRX3A7XX. Hyperbeams. Michael Murphy. Grand Region Kell. Sin Hunter. Logan Bland. Alexander Johannes. Alex Morgan. Ray Various. That other guy too. Chad Reynolds. T. Mackie 68 Rimuru. A. Zetros. Dweller of the Deepest Depths. Lone Wolf. Jacob Ropes. Bully Maguire Shadow. Rathakit Thitiratnan Thakul. Neostar Productions. Asael Cardenas. Shaquan Simmons. Thunder. Sunawin 631. Elijah Saunders. Peter Hamilton. Freddie Rose. Omega. Akuma Noakami. Remorsefuls. Black Vein. Joshua Hedrington. Aaron Abercrombie. Drift SK8ER. Corey Tokars. Jan. Devin Black. Crow. Joe Bros. Ray Von Crimson River. Dante Alastor. Adam Yonkers. Blood Saints. Donna Cafe. Zeph. KC. Howie 60. Ignacio. Hope of the universe. The ultimate guardians. Celestial tier supporters whose impact literally shines across the galaxy. Void Rot. Chaos Umbre. Noroi Uzumaki Uchiha. Tyshawn Palmer. Coldbane 4. The Maniac 563. Debs. LS Morningstar. Marl. Spin Town, I Shoot X50, Greg Green, James, Q Hon Yen Thompson, Juan, and Zeno KJ. If you enjoyed the story, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. See you in the next video.